Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Bat Around. I'm your host, Paul Valley. He's my co-host and producer extraordinaire, Zachary Goodman. It is a hot and humid and muggy Saturday.
Do you feel the stickiness in the studio right now?
Yeah.
It is wet in here.
It was hot in here. It was like this last week too. It is.
I know. I don't know what's going on if they're not running the AC or whatever's going on. It is wet in here. Like I actually can feel my skin has water on it. It's unbelievable.
And we're in a brutal stretch of just heat, humidity, thickness in the air, just grossness.
Welcome to Maryland.
And but I think I saw something about I definitely saw something about how because of El Nino and global warming, or whether you believe in that or not.
Whether you believe in that or not.
Right. Some people don't believe in it. You know what I mean? Climate change, all that stuff. We recorded the new hottest average temperature in recorded history 4 days in a row. Mm-hmm. Where the average temperature across the globe was 63 degrees.
Yeah.
And when you factor in the North Pole and the South Pole and, Santa Claus and all of his elves, and all the penguins, that's pretty remarkable. 63 degrees for the average temperature, considering the Southern Hemisphere is in winter right now and how cold it is at the poles. So it's just in conclusion, it's gross outside. I also heard that there's an atmospheric river that will be coming up the East Coast.
I'm looking forward to that. And
it's going to just drown the East Coast and I heard specifically like New York with like 10 inches of rain.
When is this supposed to be?
I don't know.
Good.
This weekend.
Okay, got it.
I'm supposed to have a baseball game tomorrow. Surprise, surprise, it's going to get rained out. That ever happens. Happens every other week.
Yeah.
Our games get rained out. Anyway.
Well, you should move them to Saturday because today's not awful. I mean, you could play at least. It'd be humid, disgusting.
Yeah,
but
your boy can't
play
because our games are at 8:30 and I have this show at 10 o'clock. So can't. And then I work in the restaurant.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So we shouldn't move them to Saturday. It should just stop freaking raining every other weekend. How about that?
I wish I could help you there. I really wish I could do something about that.
No, you don't with your North Face hat.
You love this hat. I wore this hat just for you and I should have worn the North Face shirt so you could have said I was a walking billboard. I really should have done that.
Zach told me he played tennis.
I did.
He looks like a natural-born tennis player, and he told me that he played tennis last weekend. Last weekend after the show, he said, yeah, I played tennis. And I was like, it makes sense.
No, like the first time I ever played tennis was in middle school, like God knows how long ago. And then I started playing a few months ago, I think around March, and I just never told you. But I've played maybe like 6 times since then, and it's pretty fun. I have a good time.
Yeah, because you look like a tennis player. You would have
I have a better time doing that than watching Point Break. I can tell you that.
Oh. Just not true. Just not true.
Well, it's amazing that they basically plucked a Courtney Cox doppelganger out for the movie.
Courtney Cox is way better looking than Lori Petty.
Well, that's
like
that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that, Courtney Cox obviously got her start because of Bruce Springsteen, so you can credit him for that. You can credit Bruce Springsteen for Friends. You're welcome.
Oh, my God. This is a baseball show. Today's show brought to you by Pressbox Offers. Go to PressboxOnline.com/offers now and get $150 in bonus bets from DraftKings after placing your first $5 bet. See this and other great sportsbook offers at PressboxOnline.com/offers. Running a little bit late today, and I do apologize about that. It's on me. It is on me. I lost track of time. I lost track of time at the gym, and when I finished my workout and I looked at my watch, it was 9:22, and I was like, oh, crap, I still have to take a shower. I was thinking maybe I won't shower. I'll just go straight there, but I didn't want to gross you out with my sweaty body.
Especially in this humid room.
And the thickness in here.
Yeah.
So 3 minutes behind is better than Zach vomiting between segments.
I still might do that anyway. But
yeah, you might. Who the hell knows?
Sure.
It's all chaos right now. The Orioles, winners of 6 straight, the hottest team in baseball right now. Dean Kramer goes 6 innings of 2-hit ball, allowing just 1 run with 7 strikeouts last night. It is the 6th straight quality start for the Baltimore Orioles, the 8th straight start of at least 6 innings pitched, and the 9th start in the last 10. I'm sorry. The 9th start, it's the 8th straight start of at least 6 innings pitched by an Orioles starting pitcher. It is the 6th straight quality start. It is the 9th time in 10 games that the Orioles starting pitcher has given up 2 earned runs or less, and it is the 9th time in 10 games that the starting pitcher has gone at least 6 innings. They have been on a remarkable stretch here. Cedric Mullins last night, 3 hits, a home run, a stolen base. Adam freaking Frazier, 3 hits.
Adam freaking Frazier.
2 home runs, 4 ribeye steaks last night.
Yeah.
He played hero in the game as the Orioles win 5-2, and he drove in 4 of the 5 runs. Without him, the Orioles might not win that ball game. Ryan O'Hearn on base 3 times. He had that 3 for 22 stretch a couple of weeks back, and we were all thinking, oh, he's playing more, he's getting exposed. Nope, he is right back to. Everybody goes through little slumps.
I mean, Rutschman had one just a few weeks ago.
Rutschman's had a few. This year. Basically, anytime I pick him for take to rake, he goes 1-19.
Same. I had that happen to me too. It's natural, especially when you take as many at bats as these guys do, and Ryan O'Hearn's been playing every single day. So a stretch that he's 3 for 22 in is not surprising in the slightest. So it's good to see him hitting again. It's
absolutely
really
good to see him hitting again. He had that little stretch, and then he immediately got back to he's been hitting well again for the last 2 months, or 2 weeks, basically the last 2 months. So that's really good for the Orioles to the point where Ryan Mountcastle's back on this roster, and he still hasn't started since he got back.
Yeah, so I was on Glenn's show a few months ago, and Glenn said...
A few months ago?
Well, I'm going to make a point that Glenn made back then. And we were talking specifically about Ryan Mountcastle and whether the Ryan O'Hearn situation would have him replaced, because this is the point where Ryan O'Hearn just gotten on the team and he was starting to really actually get it going. And Glenn said, it is a big deal and a huge move to bench Ryan Mountcastle. You've got to be very sure that that's the right move. And it almost looks like that's the move they've decided to make. They've really almost basically, at least in the first, 4 games since he's been off the injured list, they've benched Ryan Mountcastle.
It's been 2 games.
That's it?
Yeah, it's been 2 games.
Because he had the game, I guess the All-Star break makes me think it was longer.
It was last Sunday.
He pinch hit against the Twins,
yeah,
and then pinch hit against last night against them.
Yeah, he had a ribeye.
Okay, fair enough.
He had an RBI single when he pinch hit against, and it's crazy that happened because the Orioles, when he got that pinch hit, it gave him like an insurance run to put him up like 3-2. Or 3-1, and then they just took off.
But to keep saying that, I mean, 2 games in a row for Ryan Mountcastle being benched is not normal for him. That's the assumption I'm going to make, is that they do want Ryan O'Hearn against the right-handed pitching.
Yeah, exactly. And you saw it last night. Right-handed starter on the mound, Sandy Alcantara, and Ryan O'Hearn gets 2 hits and a walk in his first 3 plate appearances, and then as soon as the lefty comes in, Ryan Mountcastle comes off the bench, swings at the first pitch, and immediately grounds to do a double play to kill a rally. Doesn't bode well for him, and I
could have been a double play in like multiple ways too. And the runner almost gets tagged out, and they still were able to turn it. So.
Yeah, I feel bad for him, and especially if the vertigo was the real reason that he said that the ball was the size of a pea. If the vertigo was the real reason that he wasn't hitting, and now he's relegated to the bench. I mean, you have a Lou Gehrig situation.
Well, he's going to get his opportunity against the lefties. I think he's going to play eventually. But you're only facing lefties, usually 2 days out of the week, where you're facing the other 5 against righties. Yeah. More or less.
But the Orioles, they come away with a victory last night, and they needed it because, and it's weird to say about a team that's 20 games above 500, the 3rd best record in all of baseball, game and a half out of first place in the toughest division in baseball.
Yeah.
It's weird to say they needed it, but they did, because they've got the Marlins, then they've got the Dodgers and the Rays, the Phillies, the Yankees, and the Blue Jays to close out the month of July. It is a brutal stretch against teams that are mostly in playoff position right now.
Right.
Really, really difficult
and not many days off mixed in there.
Yeah.
So you're really going to have to find a way to get Adley Rutschman in the lineup and also rest him. So maybe the days where you have an unfavorable matchup, you take him out, but there's really not many days off for those guys. And I'm mentioning Rutschman specifically because he's a catcher, and they have to have days off once in a while. So it's going to be tough for guys, especially like that.
Absolutely. And that means more James McCann, who just is not hitting this year.
No.
And that brings me kind of like... I've been trying to keep my mouth shut about the lineup decisions. Last night it worked out. Adam Frazier, 3 hits, 2 home runs. You got Colton Cowser on the roster. You've got Jordan Westberg on the roster.
Right.
You feel like, especially coming out of the break, that you would see your best possible lineup. And let's be honest about this. We can talk about how great Aaron Hicks has been since joining the Orioles. He's been slowing down.
A little bit, yeah.
He's been slowing down. He's a 4th outfielder on a good baseball team.
Which is, with this is in every way. But
I would love to have seen Colton Cowser, Jordan Westburg, Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rutschman, Austin Hayes, Cedric Mullins, all in the same lineup last night.
Right.
I would have loved to have seen that, and we didn't get it.
Yeah.
You know, we had Frazier playing, you had Hicks playing, and look, Hicks did nothing. He literally he had no productive at bats last night. He came up with Mullins on third base in his first at bat. He grounded out right to the first baseman, so Mullins couldn't score. I believe he did. I think he flew out weakly to left field in the next at bat. I think he struck out.
Yeah.
It just wasn't a productive night for him. You can see the other shoe dropping with him. You know, we kind of put he and Ryan O'Hearn into the same category as these guys are playing really well right now. When's the other shoe going to drop? O'Hearn, it hasn't. Hicks, it certainly looks like it's starting to.
Yeah.
That's 2 straight games. And I know that it's a Sunday followed by a Friday because of the All-Star break, but it's 2 straight games that Colton Cowser hasn't started.
Right.
And he's not here to not play, especially he's facing a right-handed pitcher.
Right.
Play him. Just play him.
I agree with that.
I don't need to see Aaron Hicks in the lineup.
Not defending Brandon Hyde, but I will say, I believe I saw the stat that Adam Frazier was batting over 400 against Alcantara.
Adam
and
Frazier,
he had a great
I'm fine
game.
with. I was fine with that.
Yeah.
I understood it. I'm fine with that. I don't need to see Aaron Hicks play every day.
I agree with that. I think I'd have to look more into the matchups and see what Aaron Hicks was hitting off of Alcantara in previous years and kind of look into what Brandon Hyde is actually making that decision for, because there was probably a reason. Some analytics said maybe he hits the ball hard against them or he has a high OBP against them or whatever.
He was 1 for 2 in his career against Alcantara with 2 RBIs.
Tiny sample size. So I didn't hear that. But
it's on the MLB app.
Okay.
They show the matchups before every game.
That's interesting, and that's not a huge sample size. So you got to wonder, I guess, why Brandon Hyde decided to make that move. I'd love to see Colton Cowser play, as would everyone else.
Yeah, that's why he's here.
Yeah.
Right? And the Orioles, by the way, 6-0 in the Colton Cowser era.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is you want to see him play, and you know that Aaron Hicks is getting a start because of the fact he plays good defense. He's a good defender, but also because he was facing who pitched on Sunday for the Twins
way too long ago.
Was it Joe Ryan?
I don't think it was Joe.
Or
Ryan.
maybe it was the day before. I don't know. I think maybe Hicks has homered in back-to-back games. I can't remember, but I know that it was against Sonny Gray. It was
against Sonny Gray.
It was against Sonny Gray, and he got a base hit in his first at bat that helped that 6-run third inning against Sonny Gray, and he had been 0 for 13 in his career against him. So maybe, and then he hits a home run the next day, and maybe Brandon Hyde's saying, you know what, he's been defying the matchups recently. We're gonna stick with him for a little bit. And I get it, he's got the big league experience. Colton Cowser needs to be playing every single day, and I guarantee he'll be in the lineup today. He'll be unless they're facing a lefty tomorrow. He'll be in the lineup tomorrow. I'm also just sick and tired of the matchups. You've got good players on your team. You now have a roster filled with guys who should be everyday players.
Yes.
They should be everyday players. Gunnar Henderson should play every day. Jordan Westburg should play every day. Colton Cowser should play every day. Adley Rutschman, Anthony Santander, they play every game. Cedric Mullins plays just about every day.
So I was going to ask you about that. Where are you on Cedric Mullins? Because first home run last night since, May 24th or 23rd, one of those 2 dates?
I almost took him for take to Rake last week.
Okay.
Because I had seen him the week prior. Remember when I told you on the show last week that I was about to text you, like, when's the last time you saw Cedric Mullins hit a ball hard? And then he...
2 against the Yankees.
And then he flew out hard. To I think it was to center field on the next pitch, right as I was about to text you that. And then the next game against the Yankees, he ended up stroking 2 doubles down the line, and I'm thinking he is really starting to heat up. I think Cedric Mullins is back to where he was before the injury.
Okay.
I think he's back to where he was before the injury. I think he should be hitting. He should be playing every day. I wouldn't mind moving him back into the leadoff spot. I don't know. I don't love Gunnar as batting leadoff. He takes good at bats, but if you remember, he had 18 walks the first month of the season. He only has 35, which means he only has 17 walks the last 3 months.
And I'd argue that's because he's hitting a lot more than he was. I mean, that patience was actually leading him, I think, to really struggle to play overall. I mean, he was just taking way too many pitches. He was getting 1 or 2 swings in per at bat, and that's just, again, when you can hit the ball as hard as he can, and you have a knowledge of the zone like he does, you've got to swing the bat. You've got to swing the bat and take more swings than what he did. And one swing in at bat is not enough for him.
No, I 100% agree with you, but I also don't want him batting leadoff.
Right.
I think he should be in more of a... If you can live with the swing and miss, I think more for a guy who's going to hit the ball that hard if he's hitting, third or fifth.
So you think it's Cedric then? If Henderson's not the guy,
I'd much rather have Cedric back in the leadoff spot. I think Cedric.
Okay.
I think Cedric. I think he makes more contact. To be perfectly honest with you, and he's faster. He stole a base last night. He's 14th and 17 tries last night. Which, by the way, he had like 5 stolen bases the first week of the season. Why have they stopped running?
That's a good question. He had that obviously tough stretch where he wasn't getting on base a ton. So I guess right when he came back from the injury. So I guess
but he
that's
wasn't
part of why.
He wasn't running before that either.
Yeah, that's fair. You're right. I'm not sure I want to see Cedric back there. I actually think the Henderson experiment, especially given that Cedric was out for a few weeks and you got to really see that, and the Orioles played pretty well throughout that. More credit goes, I guess, to Aaron Hicks and Ryan O'Hearn than Gunnar Henderson, of course. But Gunnar, I think, filled the spot pretty well. I think Brandon Hyde at this point is looking at it as I don't want to, try to break what isn't broken, if you know what I mean.
But the Orioles, you can argue, were playing better when Cedric was where he's back to now before he got hurt batting leadoff.
They were playing well.
Because,
sure.
Gunnar was also batting leadoff every game when they lost 6-7 and weren't scoring runs.
Yeah.
For me, I would much rather see Henderson in a run-producing role and Cedric at the top setting the table.
Yeah.
That's
fair.
That to me is if it ain't broke, don't fix it type of situation.
I can't argue with that experiment at all, and not really an experiment because they've done it a lot. But if you revert back to that, what they kind of did at the beginning of the season, Henderson 5, Mullins 1, that makes sense. I can't argue with that.
But then you look back at the situation now. You're still going to bat Rutschman second. You're still going to bat Santander third. You're still going to bat O'Hearn fourth. Do you want Hayes fifth or sixth? I mean, Hayes is one of the leading hitters in baseball.
314 last night. Is what I think he ended the night with. So it's a tough decision to make. I was actually thinking last night as I looked at the lineup, why is your guy who has the best batting average and one of the top batting averages in the American League batting fifth?
Right.
Shouldn't he be in the 2-hole? And maybe you move Rutschman down a little bit.
Right, but they like the at-bats that Rutschman takes.
Sure,
he's getting on base in the first
and
inning.
the fact that he's a switch hitter.
Yeah. And look, Gunnar takes good at-bats too. There's no denying Gunner's got a good eye and he takes good at-bats. So that's why they have them batting 1-2. And then Santander is having a career year. He's taking so much better at-bats than we've ever seen before. We're going to talk about that later in Orioles banter. It's an interesting thing. And we have Luke Jackson, senior editor for Pressbox. He's coming into the studio in the 11 o'clock hour to do our midseason Orioles report. We're going to do that the entire second hour of the show, so really looking forward to that. Now, O's All-Star game. Austin Hayes, starting center fielder in the All-Star game. He goes 1 for 2 with a single.
Yep.
Rutschman 0 for 1. Yennier Cano, he basically got 5 outs in his lone inning, struck out 2. Vladimir Guerrero makes a big error on a throw from Rutschman. It wasn't a great throw from Rutschman, but it should have been picked, and he doesn't pick it. And he also, Yennier Cano had like 2 strikeouts that weren't called. But a solid inning from him. Felix Bautista gives up the 2-run homer that ended up losing the game for the American League All-Stars. And it leads me to this little soft-ass reporter. What's his name? Dan Doosley.
I don't remember, if I'm being honest with you.
I think his name's Dan. This little chode of a man out in Seattle who ambushes Felix Bautista, who's just in there holding a sign, soaking in the entire All-Star game experience right before the home run derby. And the guy goes up to him and he's like, "Hey, what do you think about the nickname King Felix? Doesn't that belong to Felix Hernandez?" He's like, "Yeah." Bautista clearly didn't fully understand what the guy was saying.
Right.
And he's like, "So can you tell the Orioles to knock it off? That's ours." As fans of Seattle, that's ours. And luckily, this guy got blasted by his own fans, by fans across baseball.
Well, I don't know about that. I saw a lot of Mariners fans in his defense.
Yeah, but there was also a lot of Mariners fans that blasted him. I wouldn't say that it was 50-50, but it wasn't like 90-10.
Look, I'll be honest. This is something that doesn't get me necessarily worked up. It's just, why do you got to be that guy?
Right. I wasn't worked up about it either, but it's something that everybody was talking about, and I'm not gonna call him King Felix. Because of the fact that he already has a nickname, it's the Mountain.
Right.
We all know his nickname.
And nobody's really ever called him that in my recollection.
The Orioles did. I was at the game against Seattle on June 24th, and when he came in, it said King Felix as he was coming in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they did that, and then they did it when he won June Reliever of the Month. They called him King Felix. It's been twice.
Okay.
It's been twice. But everybody that follows the Orioles, like we do, knows that his nickname is the Mountain. And I'm not going to just start calling him King Felix. I am a person who believes that legitimate players, Hall of Fame caliber players who have nicknames, nobody should be called the Big Unit. That's Randy Johnson. Nobody should be called the Rocket. That's Roger Clemens.
I mean,
okay, nobody. The fact that people call Gus Edwards the Bus, I hate it. I hate it. One, because that was Jerome Bettis, and two, because Jerome Bettis played for the biggest rival, the Baltimore Ravens. Why are we calling Gus just because it rhymes with bus? No. Can we call him something else?
Look, I mean, my take on all of this is a nickname is whatever to me. I really don't care. The principle of it is that the guy went up to Felix Bautista and
don't you stifle me. Don't you?
I'm just saying.
Don't you stifle me on my own show, bro?
All I'm saying is that he went up to Felix Bautista and attacked him with something that Felix Bautista had no part in. That's the problem here.
That's the point.
Yeah.
That's the point. Yeah. I don't give a damn about the nicknames aside from the fact that if somebody has had a legitimate Hall of Fame caliber career and they have a nickname that everybody knows them by, it's their nickname. But I'm not going to sit there and say the only one I'm ever going to bitch about is Gus Edwards and Jerome Bettis. I don't want a Ravens running back to have the same nickname as a Steelers Hall of Fame running back. I don't want that. But anything else, I don't really care. What the guy did was totally inappropriate, and he deserved to get blasted the way that he did. We got to get Stan on the line. We'll call him in just a minute.
I'll shoot him a text.
Enrique Bradfield. Wait a second, because I'm talking to you.
Okay.
Enrique Bradfield, taken 17th overall by the Orioles.
Yes.
Out of Vanderbilt, correct?
Yes.
Very speedy. He has an 80 rating in speed, a 70 rating in defense. The bat's like a 55.
That's high. I think that's high.
Yeah, well, I think I saw that the bat was like a 55. Maybe it was a 50. Maybe that's a future grade.
That's probably a future grade you're looking at. I mean, I think I'm not even that high future there. This guy, to me, I did watch him a little bit of Vanderbilt. I always watch a lot of Vanderbilt during the college baseball year because they're always so talented, and they were good again this year. This guy is speed and defense first and foremost. That's what it looks like to me. And I saw Mason McRae, who he now works for the Cubs in their scouting department. He just got hired, and he's been a guy who's followed the draft very closely over the past few years. I read a little bit about what he talked about with Enrique Bradfield, and I generally trust his opinion. And he said that he has one of the best contact ratios and contact zones in all of baseball and all of college baseball. And that's impressive to me. I just don't know if there's any power here. It kind of reminds me of Austin Martin a few years ago, who also came out of Vanderbilt, who had no power, and even though he made so much contact, he couldn't really get on base because there's not enough power.
Well,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, but I don't. If you have that kind of speed, and you play that kind of defense, and you're getting singles, and you're walking, I don't need you to have power. Not everybody needs to hit 30 home runs. If you can get on base,
that's not the point I'm making. But
well, then what's the point you're making?
I'm just saying that generally, again, for a guy like Austin Martin, who makes a ton of contact,
but Austin Martin doesn't have anywhere near the speed.
No, he doesn't. But keep in mind, I mean, this guy was still a number 5 overall pick, still a really high first-round pick, had a ton of tools, but really hasn't done anything. And his OPS is like 690 right now in AAA, I think it is, because he just hasn't really been able to get anywhere because the balls he's putting in play aren't hit hard. That's kind of what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, but the difference there is Enrique Bradfield hits a ball that's not hit hard to the left side, he's going to beat it out.
Okay, that's fair.
You know, if he knows how to bunt.
That's a fair argument.
It blows my mind, and you can get Stan on the line now.
Sure.
It blows my mind that a guy that has the speed of Jorge Mateo doesn't bunt every game. You know, you can't hit. You might as well lay down a bunt every game. I would expect that this guy would hit. Would bunt if he has that kind of speed. I don't know. I never watched him in college. I'll be perfectly honest. I don't watch a lot of college baseball. I don't know much about the guy except he's an elite defender and he's got elite speed and he makes good contact. Or let's say that he makes a lot of contact. We'll put it that way. Are you buying some of the rumors that people are putting out there that he was drafted to be a September call-up this year.
That doesn't seem like Michael Elias to me.
I can't imagine that they would do that,
No.
but people are talking about they want to have. I guess you would use him in the same way that you would use Jared Dyson.
Well, so it's the thing that the White Sox did with Garrett Crochet, where they called him up and they never actually let him even pitch a game in the minors, and he got called up and he got injured very quickly, but he was actually pretty dominant for them in the few games he pitched for them when they called him up.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you would use him in that kind of role where he's a pinch runner, defender. I don't see any value in that, really. I don't.
Well, there's value to it, but you don't. I just can't imagine that the Orioles would do that. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me to draft somebody, give him very little pro experience, and then bring him up in September.
Because
I mean, the Orioles did that with Ben McDonald back when they drafted him, and they drafted Dylan Bundy in 2011, and then he was up by the end of 2012.
My point is that I think the Orioles are way too development focused to make that kind of move. I think that would be detrimental to his development.
Yeah, I can't imagine that you would want to do that. But, stranger things have happened. It blows my mind that anybody would do that with a starting pitcher.
Right.
Anyway, today's show brought to you by your local Toyota dealer. If I can find these pages are stuck together. The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines. You can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. So check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today. Joining us now on the line for his weekly segment, he is Stan the Fan. Charles, Stan, good morning. Did you enjoy your All-Star break?
Yeah, very much so.
Good. Did you enjoy that Orioles game last night? Dean Kramer giving the Orioles their sixth straight quality start with 6 innings of 2-hit, 1-run ball. What were your thoughts on Kramer's performance and the Orioles' rotation in general over the last 10 days?
Well, I thought Kramer was really good last night, except for that third inning where he walked the leadoff hitter, who was, I think, a 202 hitter, and then hit Jacob Stallings. He boxed himself into some trouble, but I was impressed as his manager with how he pitched out of it. So, and then built upon that. He didn't just get out of a jam. He then sort of put the hammer down. So I was very impressed with him.
Yeah, he was dominant with the exception of that third. It's crazy how pitchers can just lose their command for an inning like that and then bounce back like it never happened. But that's exactly what Kramer did last night. And Stan, it was the 8th straight start and 9th out of 10 in an Orioles starter with at least 6 innings. It was a 6th straight start and 9th out of 10 in an Orioles starter allowed 2 earned runs or less. Is this starting rotation starting to show you a little bit more and give you a little bit more confidence as we head towards the dog days of summer and the playoff stretch here?
Yeah, it's given me a lot more confidence, and it's for me, and I wrote a column last Monday on this, to me it's really put in focus what the weakest link on this team is right now, and it's the bullpen. And you've got, you know me with starters into relievers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not projecting Grayson Rodriguez become a relief pitcher permanently. That's my assessment at DL Hall. I know Grayson Rodriguez is destined to be a very solid Major League starter. But for this year, I think he'd be the perfect guy to bring up and put him almost in that Austin Voth role of a year ago, where if you need a spot start, and Voth was actually more than a spot starter for a while, for about 5 or 6 starts, he made them consecutively. But I think Grayson, who would you rather have in a close game in the 6th inning, and we're leading, and there's 2 runners on, and you got to get 1 out, and then you want to get through to Cano? Would you rather have Brian Baker, Michael Baumann, or Grayson Rodriguez?
Oh, Grayson Rodriguez. Grayson Rodriguez, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
that's the perfect role for him for this year. Almost like the Rays in the postseason many moons ago used David Price. He's a weapon that can really turn a game around at a key moment in time.
And Stan, I will admit that last week you were the first person I heard mention this, but you were not the last person I've heard over the last week mention Grayson Rodriguez in a bullpen role. And what it really is going to come down to is if Cole Irvin is going to be able to keep pitching the way he has the last few starts in that rotation, because he's the most susceptible to a Grayson Rodriguez call-up if the Orioles decide to keep him as a starting pitcher despite the innings concerns this year. So we're going to see what happens there, but I don't disagree with you that maybe they want that provides a weapon from within for the Orioles bullpen. Now, Stan, the Cardinals announced that they're in sell mode, and they have a couple of intriguing pitchers there. Jordan Montgomery in the rotation, Jordan Hicks coming out of the bullpen. Do you think that the Orioles, knowing that these guys are on the block now, would make a run at getting either or both of these guys from the Cardinals?
Again, I'm not as big on giving up the prospects we have in a deal for a rental. So
right.
if I knew the club was inclined to want to sign, let's say sign Montgomery for 3 years at $30 million, then I'd make a trade for him, and let Kyle Gibson walk at the end of the year, because I think Jordan Montgomery would be a nice piece for the Orioles. Jordan Hicks is not as exciting to me. His whip, I was looking at him yesterday. His whip is a little out of hand for me. I mean, he does have a powerful arm, no question about it.
Yeah, and we know that the Orioles.
I'd be more inclined to turn to the Kansas City Royals and try and figure out a way to get an experienced reliever, Scott Barlow, and an up-and-coming reliever in Carlos Hernandez.
Yeah,
that would be my ideal to pick. Shop at one stop.
And honestly, Stan, now that the draft is over, should be Michael Eis's sole focus now is improving this ball club, whether it's through a trade or I guess it would have to be a trade at this point. We're talking about the deadline, but Michael Eis's sole focus, and we've been able to see him make moves in the past that didn't look great at the time. I mean, he was blasted for the Jorge Lopez trade last year, and they ended up getting one of their top pitching prospects in Cade Povich and Yennier Cano, who's one of the top relievers in baseball and was an All-Star this year. So I trust that he'll make.
Who was blasting him last year for that trade?
He was widely blasted all around baseball for trading an All-Star closer when the team. Yes, he was. When they were in the thick of a playoff race, he got blasted a little bit for the Trey Mancini trade.
I think it was kind of the John Haymans of the world.
Yeah, John Heyman, Buster Olney, Bob Nightingale, a lot of those guys kind of it came after the Orioles.
I didn't recall that, but I thought it was a great. I saw that the gravy that he's gotten on his mashed potatoes is Cano. I mean, that's anyway.
Yeah, and I thought it was a good trade.
Can I ask Zach a quick question?
Of course, absolutely.
You referenced something when you were talking about Enrique Bradfield.
Mm-hmm.
You referenced Darren Erstad.
I did?
No,
I did not.
Yeah. In what? Okay, I thought I heard Darren Erstad mentioned.
No, I did not.
Let's talk a little bit. He was talking about maybe that pitcher for was it the White Sox who came up?
Garrett Crochet.
Garrett Crochet. That's who he was talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, I was.
You said Darren Erstad. That's why I looked up Darren Erstad. Okay. Garrett Crochet definitely came up that year, no question about it.
Yeah, Garrett Crochet came up in 2020, the COVID year, and never actually pitched in the minor leagues until he actually did pitch in the minor leagues this year, I guess on rehab assignment. But, Garrett Crochet
No, but if you go back and listen to the tape, you said Darren Erstad.
Oh, I don't remember that, but okay, thanks. I guess I might have.
And Stan, let's talk.
Let's doing a double take, so I went through his record and saw that he could play in the minor leagues before he got to the majors. All right. Let me use my hearing. I don't know.
That's all right. They do sound very similar. Now, Stan, Enrique Bradfield, let's talk about him a little bit. Elite speed, elite defense. The bat makes a lot of contact. Zach has concerns over the type of contact, the hard contact that he can make. How do you feel about this pick for the Orioles at number 17? And have you heard the rumors, and are you buying the rumors that the Orioles could potentially have him be a late-season call-up as a defensive replacement and pitch runner?
I've never heard that rumor. And exactly who is he coming in for to play defense?
I don't know. I just saw people.
That's a ridiculous. The Orioles are. I 100% guarantee you that Enrique Bradfield is not coming up to the major.
Oh, I don't think he is either, but I did see people after the
But
draft.
But who said that? How many people are saying that?
Stan, I can't remember the names. I saw it on social media from people who were dissecting the draft. I saw it on Sunday right after the pick was, and then on Monday more so.
I mean, by reputable baseball people, I mean, like Heyman and Rosenthal or something. There's no way that has happened.
No, let me rephrase then. There were people that were following the draft were speculating that this was a pick that the Orioles could be. I didn't hear it from a reputable source. It just was something that caught my attention.
Then why are we talking about it?
Because it caught my attention, Stan, and it's speculation, and I thought it was interesting. That's why we're talking about it. How do you feel about the pick?
To be honest with you, we interviewed him yesterday on Glenn's show. Terrific guy, very bright guy. He's got a skill set, and they think that they can make something special out of. And I wouldn't underestimate him. He seemed like a very, very good guy. And from what I've seen, the few video clips I've seen of him, he really plays defense. He really steals bases. I think it's a worthwhile. I won't call it a risk. I think it's a nice pick at 17.
Stan, what do you make?
More importantly, I thought it was great that they then pivoted and started taking pitchers after the second pick. This was a year, and I heard Elias during the game last night. I videotaped the game last night so I could talk to Devo about how he did on the game, and Mike Elias was on for an inning or so, and he makes it sound like, it's just the way the board fell, that we took so many pitchers. It really wasn't I think they know they've got so many prospects right now, not clogging the veins of the organization, but they're in nice shape to take a year where they really invest heavily in some pitching arms, and they drafted, 13 pitchers?
I believe that was the number, yeah. Stan, I wanted to ask about Bradfield because if you look at two stats that I think stand out a little bit, a career .311 batting average over 3 years, that's a tad lower than you see a lot of guys have, especially first-round picks. But it is the SEC, and he faced quite good competition, obviously, at Vanderbilt. But then you look at the number, only 15 career home runs in over 190 games. Does that concern you at all? Does the power concern you? Do you think he's going to be able to hit the ball hard and produce the exit velocities the Orioles really look for?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure of that, but it's certainly something that would raise my eyebrows. But I think they feel that there's some that he can build up some strength too, and that exit velocity and home runs can come from that a little bit if they get his look at Cedric Mullins. There's nobody in the world when Cedric was coming up that would have projected him as a 20 hit 30 in one season and be pretty much a 20-plus home run guy. He didn't project that way. So I think Bradfield is an interesting pick. I'm very impressed with the kid, though. Very bright kid. So and he feels very positive about the organization he's going to and the reputation they have as to being able to. He's very aware of what he needs to work on, I didn't see any kind of like pie in the sky, where I don't really have a major weakness. He knows what he's got to work on,
Well, and the good news here is that the Orioles have a really productive outfield, and their fourth outfielder in Aaron Hicks is also a very productive player. So there's no need to rush Enrique Bradfield. They can develop him at their pace and make sure that he has checked all the boxes before they need to think about calling him up in the future. So that's a nice pick for the Orioles, in my opinion. A guy with speed and defense, and if he can become even a John Jay type of hitter, it's going to bode well because he'll be able to turn a lot of singles into doubles and a lot of doubles into triples. So for me, it's exciting and something that we'll be looking for in the future. Now, in the immediate future, Stan, the Orioles, they're in the midst of a stretch where they face the Marlins, Dodgers, Rays, Phillies, Yankees, and Blue Jays to close out the month. How tough is is this stretch for the Orioles, and how much of an impact will this stretch have on what this team does at the deadline?
I'm not quite sure how it'll impact the deadline because that deadline is fast approaching.
Sure.
I mean, we're talking about 10, 12 days. They have to really hone in on a couple candidates to trade for. There's no question it's a tough gauntlet right now. But as I pointed out early in the season, you might have been able, and now I have the Orioles at number 2, which I didn't have at the beginning of the season. But you could probably take a handful, 3, 4, 5 teams that we really think have a good chance to win the World Series. But that doesn't mean that the next 12 teams aren't real good. And that's where I'd put, Tampa and the Yankees and Toronto in that next pocket. Maybe even Tampa and Toronto would be in the top 5 or 6. But, it's a tough gauntlet, but it figures in Major League Baseball in this day and age. There's going to be a lot of competent teams out there.
Yeah. And the Orioles have proven that they can play with anybody. We saw that when they started that gauntlet in May, and they went toe-to-toe with the Braves, who were clearly the best team in baseball, and they went toe-to-toe with the Rays. And, I believe that in that 22-game stretch, they went I can't remember off the top of my head, but they were well above 500 in that stretch that we called the gauntlet. This one looks a little bit tougher, facing teams that are all pretty much in playoff position right now. Do the Orioles do they need another offensive piece to keep pace, or do you feel like they've solved their offensive problems from within, averaging just around 7 to 8 runs a game in July? Have they solved this problem from within?
I don't see the offense being the problem on this team. They're quickly probably facing. We went over it on Glenn's show yesterday. The possible candidates to be moved off the roster, offensive pieces to make way for that 13th pitcher again.
Mm-hmm.
And it really looks like Mateo's days are possibly numbered. You never know what can happen with an injury or something like that. But to me, and I'm not just, believe me, I got better things to do with my time than pick a vendetta with Ryan Mountcastle. I still think if I were really shaping this roster, we got 3 guys that can play first base, and Santander and Urias can play first base, and both of them can bat right-handed. I don't see Mountcastle. I see the best thing for him would be to go down and be optioned to the minor leagues for 3 or 4 weeks. It's the best thing for him, and it's the best thing for the ball club.
Yeah, I can see that happening. I think that I don't know. I just feel like Brandon Hyde maybe it's a respect thing. He values Ryan Mountcastle as a person and as a player, and
I'm sure he has a great deal of loyalty to him.
Yeah.
But, again, the stakes have changed. Who do you think is really potentially a more important player for the next 30 days? Is it Ryan Mountcastle or Jorge Mateo? And I still see Mateo as being a valuable piece defensively.
And as a pinch runner.
I mean, you're talking about bringing Enrique Bradfield up as a speed guy. You already got one.
Right. Right. No, I agree with you on that. I just, when Ryan Mountcastle is at his best, he's a very productive player. But again, he hasn't shown us anything in the last 2 years that makes us think that this is going to turn around for him. So I don't disagree that maybe he needs a prolonged stint in the minor leagues to prove that he belongs up here, because there are players who have outplayed him and taken the spot, frankly.
What's going to increase his trade value more, that he goes down to AAA for 30 days and dominates, okay, and sets himself up as, hey, teams like the Oakland A's and the Kansas City Royals would take a shot on him, or being up here batting purely against left-handed pitchers, and look what happened last night. They put him in against a left-hander, and voila, manager comes out and he's batting against a right-hander.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think he's going to – I think his value will shrink over the next 30 days, not get better.
Yeah,
That's my take. That's my take on it.
I don't necessarily disagree with you. And the Orioles have, like you said, the stakes are higher now, and they've come to a point where this roster needs to have the best players available to them on a nightly basis. And right now, you have to argue that one of those players is not Ryan Mountcastle. And if he's not in the lineup and he's not hitting, he doesn't provide you any value. So I definitely agree with you, Stan. What do you have coming up this week?
Ross and I are going to be doing our Zoom at 4 o'clock on Monday, and we're going to have Mike Devereaux fresh off of doing 3 games as an analyst on the Masson games.
Looking forward to that. I really enjoyed Mike Devereaux's analysis during the game last night. I've always been a Mike Devereaux guy, so it was nice to hear him call the game. All right, Stan.
I thought it was kind of interesting that he wore number 12, and who hit 2 home runs last night?
Number 12. Adam Frazier.
Number 12, Adam Frazier.
Absolutely.
Going on there. All right, guys.
All right, Stan. We'll talk to you next week.
All right.
See you. That was Stan the Fan Turtles, who has changed up the format for his weekly shows. Now, every Monday at 6 p.m., Stan will be joined by former Orioles pitcher Ross Grimsley and Pressbox's managing editor Luke Jackson to break down the latest with the Birds. Every Thursday night, Stan and Gary Stein will still chat with a different newsmaker from the world of sports. This week, they chatted with the Orioles team historian Bill Stetka ahead of the team's 40th anniversary celebration of the 1983 World Series title. You can watch the shows live at facebook.com/Pressbox or find them the next day at PressboxOnline.com/video and YouTube.com/PressboxOnline. So join Stan, Ross, and Luke, who will be in studio in a matter of moments this and every Monday night moving forward. Before we go to break, look, I didn't see from John Heyman or Ken Rosenthal or Jonathan Mayo or Jim Callis that Enrique Bradfield was going to be called up in September. But I saw from enough people talking about it on Twitter whose opinions I trust. I'm not going to put their names out there because I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but their opinions I trust as far as what they see and what they hear, that said that it's not out of the realm of possibility that Enrique Bradfield could have been drafted to be a September call-up this year. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm not saying anybody said it concretely, but it is speculation that's interesting enough that I think it needs to be talked about. Whether you agree with me or not, that's another conversation for another day. But let me just put it out there that nobody with with an earned blue check mark next to their name said this. It was just something I saw multiple times and made me think, that's interesting. What do people think about it? I was more so trying to get somebody's opinion on the possibility, not saying that other people thought this is definitely going to happen. We got to catch a break. When we come back in, we're going to do the payoff pitch around the league, and I want to save sounding off with Zach Goodman for when Luke gets here because I'd like to get his opinion because this is going to be our July top 5 teams in baseball power ranking, so I'd like to get Luke's take on that as well. So we'll see you back here in a few minutes on the Battle Round.
It's another exciting weekend of affordable family fun at Prince George's Stadium with the Bowie Bay Sox. It starts on the 14th with our big hitter bobblehead, Connor Norby, for the first 750 fans. Saturday sees our special circus night with post-game fireworks. And Sunday features the Kobe Mayo Squish Pillow with special ticket package. Get your tickets now by calling 301-805-6000 or anytime online at baysox.com. The Bowie Bay Sox. Let us be your 9-inning vacation.
I'm Michael Jangrandy, president of AJ Michaels, your carrier energy expert for 44 years. Save money, energy, and make your home more comfortable and virus-free. Find us at ajmichaels.com. That's ajmichaels.com.
Hey Birdland, a new alternative payment method is available at Oriole Park at Camden Yards for the 2023 season. OzPay is a quick, convenient, and rewarding option to make payments at concessions and retail locations throughout the ballpark. Use OzPay to unlock rewards, special offers, and unique experiences. And with secure, contactless payment, you'll get back to your seats faster. Get started in the MLB Ballpark app or learn more at Orioles.com/OzPay. That's Orioles.com/OzPay.
Your summer destination is closer than you think at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. With an expansive gaming floor and incredible dining options ready for you to explore, your adventure awaits. Dine at the new Coho Korean Barbecue House coming in July or on the patio at the Prime Rib. Enjoy the summertime breeze at Orchid Smoking Patio. Limited time packages starting at $229. What are you waiting for? Book now. At Arundel Mills, must be 21. Please play responsibly. For help, visit mdgamblinghelp.org or call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
Hike to new heights. The best view is yours in Washington County. Our iconic scenic overlooks provide some of the most breathtaking vistas in the Mid-Atlantic. Some are very easy walks, some can be driven to, and some are the payoff for a moderate to difficult hike. All are near quaint small towns that offer great dining, shopping, hiking gear, and more. Explore our 5 national parks for iconic vistas and wineries with breathtaking views. Visit our quaint historic towns and make your stay unforgettable. Learn more at visithagerstown.com. Maryland, be open.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Costas Inn has been serving up delicious steamed crabs for over 50 years. Lately, the crabs you want to eat when the weather warms up have gotten harder and harder to get. So get your crab eating game plan in place. Make sure to stick this number on your fridge, 410-477-1975. Call ahead and reserve the size crabs you want. You may be able to walk in, but you may also be disappointed at the size or maybe even get shut out altogether. So call ahead, have a plan, and then arrive on your crab eating vacation. Costas also has delicious crab soup and crab cakes. The Costas Inn at 4100 North Point Boulevard. For more than 50 years, they've been satisfying crab lovers in and around Baltimore.
Welcome back into the Bat Around. Did you know that Pressbox's Glenn Clark Radio is the definitive place to find the best daily discussion of Baltimore sports? Watch the show every weekday from 10 to noon at youtube.com/PressboxOnline or facebook.com/PressboxSports, or listen at PressboxOnline.com/radio. With podcasts available on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, you never know who might pop up on GCR. This week, the guys caught up with Orioles first-round pick Enrique Bradfield Jr., the legendary Ken Singleton, and Adley Rutschman's dad, Randy, after he threw in the home run derby. You can find those interviews and more right now in the Glenn Clark Radio Week interview feature at PressboxOnline.com. Griffin will be out from Tuesday to Friday this week, so I will be in with Glenn, and you can catch me 4 days this week. So if you'd like to do that, tune in to Glenn Clark Radio.
All right. I don't know why anybody would want to listen to Zach.
I don't either, honestly. That's a great question. I don't know why even Glenn asks me. I really don't know.
All right. It is now time.
I don't understand either, Paul.
We're just joking. We all love Zach. Now time for the payoff pitch around the league. Dean Kramer notched the Orioles' 6th straight quality start and 8th straight start of at least 6 innings, with 6 innings of 2-hit, 1-run ball. And Cedric Mullins, Ryan O'Hearn, and Adam Frazier combined for 8 hits, 3 home runs, and 5 RBIs. 2 of the home runs and 4 of the RBIs from Frazier himself. To pace the offense, the Orioles moved to 20 games above 500 for the first time since 2014, with a 5-2 win over the Marlins. Manny Machado stayed hot with his 16th home run, and his superstar teammates Juan Soto and Fernando Tatis joined him in the home run department, while Yu Darvish struck out 9 over 6 innings of 1-run ball as the Padres took care of business against the Phillies 8-3. Michael Conforto collected 2 hits, 2 RBIs, and a stolen base to lead the offense in the Giants' 6-4 win over the Pirates. Vladdy homered, Chapman had 3 knocks, and Jose Barrios allowed 1 run while pitching into the 6th to lead Toronto past Arizona 7-2. Corbin Burns struck out 13 over 6 shutout innings, allowing 2 hits as the Brewers squeaked one out against the Reds 1-0. This does this every time. J.D. Martinez homered. Mookie Betts collected 2 hits, and Julio Urias allowed 1 hit over 6 shutout innings as the Dodgers blanked the Mets 6-0. Matt Olson connected for a first-inning grand slam, his NL-leading 30th bomb, and Charlie Morton allowed 3 hits over 7 shutout innings to pick up his 10th win, a 9-0 victory over the White Sox. The Red Sox homered 5 times, including 2 by Rafael Devers to blast the Cubs. 8-3, Cody Bellinger homered twice for Chicago in the loss. Josh and Bo Naylor each homered in the 3rd inning, joining BJ and Justin Upton, Tommy and Hank Aaron, and Cal and Billy Ripken as a 4th set of brothers to homer for the same team in the same inning. But despite the niceties of that fact, Nate Lau had 4 hits, 1 being a home run. Jonah Heim drove in 4, and Corey Seager and Adolis Garcia added homers to push the Rangers past the Guardians 12-4. The New York Yankees and Colorado Rockies, former known Oriole killer Randall Grichuk homered, and Austin Gomer allowed 2 earned runs in the 6th innings as the Rockies took care of business against the Yankees 4-2. For Gomer, it was a 4th straight start of at least 5 innings pitched and 2 earned runs after accomplishing the feat just 3 times in his first 15 starts. Kyle Tucker and Jose Abreu combined for 5 hits and 2 RBIs, and Shohei Ohtani allowed 5 runs in 5 innings as the Astros took down the Angels 7-5. Joey Gallo came through with a big 2-run homer in the top of the 9th, and the Twins' bullpen held on, allowing a run in the bottom half, but coming out with a victory over the A's 5-4. The Tigers hit 3 home runs, and Eduardo Rodriguez struck out 7 over 5 solid innings to stop the Mariners 5-4. The Nationals and St. Louis Cardinals were suspended in the 3rd inning due to rain, with the Cardinals up 1-0 thanks to a Lars Nootbaar dinger, all-time name there. And the Tampa Bay Rays and Kansas City Royals were postponed due to rain, which allowed the Orioles with their victory to get within a game and a half of the first place but struggling Tampa Bay Rays.
They're making that game up today at 2:10 is game 1. I guess game 2 is to be determined, but we're looking at the doubleheader there for those games today. First game of the day, Blake Snell takes on Taijuan Walker. It's a veteran matchup at Citizens Bank Park. That's the Padres and the Phillies. That's at 1:05. As I mentioned, the Rays take on the Royals in game 1 of a doubleheader. That's 2:10 at Kauffman Stadium. Tyler Glasnow goes up against Alec Marsh. James Paxton, Marcus Stroman, they've both been really good based on the numbers this season. The Red Sox, they'll take on the Cubs, 2:20 at Wrigley Field. Zach Gallen, he might win a Cy Young this year. It's very possible. Takes on Chris Bassett of the Blue Jays. That's 3:07 at the Rogers Center as the D-backs are in town. Gavin Williams goes for the Guardians. Andrew Heaney goes for the Rangers, 4:05 at Globe Life Field. Ryan Weathers goes for the Padres as Ranger Suarez goes for the Phillies, 7:05 at Citizens Bank Park. Former Oriole Alex Cobb takes on Johan Oviedo as the Pirates battle at home against the Giants. PNC Park, 7:05 tonight. Kyle Gibson goes for your Baltimore Orioles in Baltimore against Braxton Garrett and the Miami Marlins as the Orioles look to take game 2 of the series. Pablo Lopez takes on Hogan Harris, 7:07 at the Oakland Coliseum. The Twins battle the Oakland Athletics. Game 2 is scheduled to start at 7:10 for the Rays and the Royals. Cole Raggins on the mound for the Royals, to be determined. Our favorite pitcher on the mound for the Rays. Freddie Peralta takes on Andrew Abbott, Brewers and Reds, 7:10 at Great American Ballpark. Tony Gonsolin, Kodai Senga, who's been really good for the Mets this year, 7:15 at Citi Field. Dodgers are in town for a classic matchup against New York. Jake Irvin takes on Steven Matz, that's the Nats and the Cards, 7:15 at Busch Stadium. White Sox take on the Braves. Spencer Strider, the excellent young starting pitcher, takes on the veteran Lance Lynn, 7:15 at Truist Park. Clark Schmidt and Connor Siebold go head-to-head. That's the Yankees and the Rockies, 8:10 at Coors Field. Framber Valdez takes on Reed Detmers, 2 lefties, Astros and Angels, in-division matchup there, 9:07 at Angels Stadium. Michael Lorenzen, the former 2A player, goes for the Tigers. George Kirby, the second-year man, goes for the Mariners, 9:40 at T-Mobile Park. And it looks like there's a suspended game already that's happened today. I didn't know there was a doubleheader, but there's already a suspended game. The Nationals and the Cardinals, they were in the bottom of the 3rd, and apparently
that
that's...
was the game.
Oh, that's going to be
last night.
Okay. It's confusing the way I listed it here. But Trevor Williams and Miles Michaelis in that game, that will be continued as the Nationals and the Cardinals go head-to-head. And then they'll have game 2 later on, it seems. So there you go.
All
Games
right.
on tap.
All right. Well, we are going to catch our second break now with Luke Jackson being moments away from coming into studio. We got a nice long Orioles banter segment with him coming up. So we're going to catch a break. When we come back, Luke Jackson, editor for Pressbox, will be in studio. That's next on the Batter Round.
It's a Maryland thing you wouldn't understand. Where the waves meet the shore, you will find Dorchester County. Hi, this is Jimmy Charles. When I think of Maryland, I think Dorchester County. on the Eastern Shore where it's open for making memories. Dorchester County, it's a Maryland thing. For more info, visit www.visitdorchester.org. It's a Maryland thing. Hell yeah. It's a Maryland thing. Hell yeah.
Costas Inn has been serving up delicious steamed crabs for over 50 years. Lately, the crabs you want to eat when the weather warms up have gotten harder and harder to get. So get your crab eating game plan in place. Make sure to stick this number on your fridge, 410-477-1975. Call ahead and reserve the size crabs you want. You may be able to walk in, but you may also be disappointed at the size or maybe even get shut out altogether. So call ahead, have a plan, and then arrive on your crab eating vacation. Costas also has delicious crab soup and crab cakes. The Costas Inn at 4100 North Point Boulevard. For more than 50 years, they've been satisfying crab lovers in and around Baltimore.
The All-America Senior Game powered by New Balance will be back at Johns Hopkins Homewood Field on July 29th. The most decorated girls and boys lacrosse players in the country have been invited to play in what is the premier lacrosse event of the year. Every college coach wants their players in this game, and if you dream of being in this game, you start by trying out for one of your regional underclass teams this summer. The best against the best. Get your tickets now at allamericalacrosse.com.
Are you a diehard O's fan looking for the perfect way to show your team spirit? Look no further than Birdland Sports. Birdland Sports is a small business run by fans for fans. They offer a wide variety of unofficial O's merchandise, from the Birds Are Coming tees to player cartoon shirts and more. And the best part? Their prices are more affordable than the big guys. So head to birdlandsports.com and grab your gear today. Show your support for the Birds with Birdland Sports.
Soak up summertime fun in Charm City. Enjoy only in Baltimore festivals, mouth-watering eats, and endless entertainment. Cheer on the O's at Camden Yards. Pick crabs by the waterfront. Beat the heat inside a world-class museum and make memories that will last a lifetime. Go to baltimore.org for more information and to plan your visit.
I'm Griffin Bass, and I have the extraordinary, mind-blowing, and life-affirming pleasure of being the new producer for the absolute funniest, smartest, and most handsome sports host in all of Baltimore. Wait a second, Glenn. I'm working for you, not Jeremy Kahn. If you're not listening to Glenn Clark Radio, here's what you're missing.
He's Coach Kevin Willard.
Glenn, thanks for having me.
Baltimore Ravens wide receiver Rashad Bateman.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
He is outfielder Cedric Mullins.
Thank you guys for having me.
Mr. Marcus Williams, who's now with us.
Man, appreciate it. Happy to be on.
Ravens kicker Justin Tucker.
Thanks for having me.
Adley Rutschman.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
John Angelos.
Thanks a lot. Good to be with you.
He is Gunnar Henderson.
Thank y'all so much.
Marlon Humphrey.
Thank you.
Talia Tungavailoa.
Thank you guys for having me.
He is J.K. Dobbins.
Thank you for having me. I had a great time.
The great Ray Lewis.
Always good to be on.
He is Mr. Cal Ripken Jr.
Good chatting with you.
Watch Glenn Clark Radio at youtube.com/PressboxOnline and listen live at PressboxOnline.com/radio or anytime on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or anywhere you get your podcasts.
I'm Michael Jangrandy, president of AJ Michaels, your carrier energy expert for 44 years. Save money, energy, and make your home more comfortable and virus-free. Find us at ajmichaels.com. That's ajmichaels.com.
All electronic tolling is here to stay in Maryland, and DriveEasyMD.com helps you cruise a little easier. We're Maryland's tolling resource, home to Easy Pass, pay-by-plate, and video tolling. It's never been easier to pay your way. DriveEasyMD.com. We'll keep you moving.
All right, whack 'em back to the batter round. Whack-a-mole. Whack 'em back to the batter round. Welcome back to the batter round. Paul Valley, Zach Goodman in studio today. Waiting on Luke Jackson. Will be here in just a moment to talk some Orioles banter with us. Orioles they're playing some good baseball, and it's crazy how different 2 weeks can make things seem.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, they were in the midst of losing 2 of 3 to the Minnesota Twins, where they, after losing 2 of 3 to the Cincinnati Reds, where they scored 3 runs in that 3-game series against the Twins. And then they go to play the New York Yankees. They lose a game, I think it was something like 4-2 or 8-4 or something like that. And they call up Colton Cowser, and now all of a sudden they're scoring 6, 7, 8 runs a game. They have 2 monster blowouts, beating the Yankees 14-1 and the Twins 15-2. I think they had like 5 innings of 5 runs or more from Thursday through Sunday last week, which was just damn impressive. And now it makes you think. I've been saying since the offseason, the Orioles need another bat for the middle of this order, but that bat might be Ryan O'Hearn.
Might be Colin Cowser.
It might be Colin Cowser. It might be Jordan Westberg. This team is playing maybe their best baseball. Right. It's the first time that we've seen all three facets of the game in unison.
Yeah.
Where the defense,
That's very true.
The defense is playing well. The starting rotation is getting deep in the games. The bullpen is coming in. And it's a lot easier for the bullpen to succeed when they only had to pitch the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings.
I thought Dean Kramer had his best stuff last night.
He was very
of the whole year. And
he was really good last night. The cutter was really good his last start too, and it was really good. It almost looked like a sweeper last night because it seemed like maybe he was taking some velocity. It had a lot of movement. He got Jorge Soler to look foolish.
So I was impressed, though, not so much at the cutter, but at the fastball and changeup combo. And that's what, if you look at what the Orioles did for John Means and how they made him into a really productive starter, they've done it to a lot of other guys. Yennier Cano relies heavily off the fastball changeup combo. To me, you look at that combo from Dean Kramer last night, what he was able to do, especially with the changeup, so much better than what he was doing, start 1, 2, 3 of the year. So, I mean, it's a drastic difference to me. He's getting so many more swing and misses right now on the fastball changeup combo. And like you said, when you add a cutter in there, you add his 12-6 breaking balls in there, that's a really good combo. That's going to have a lot of success if he can keep locating the fastball and locating the changeup. That's what he did last night. That's why he was so good.
And it's crazy because the cutter has now become a weapon for him. And it was a weapon for him last year.
Yeah.
But in 2021, when he was so bad, the cutter was what kept getting him in trouble. And I believe a lot of his home runs he's given up this year, and he's given up 20, have come off the cutter.
Well, especially
same thing with Tyler Wells.
From a righty-righty perspective, it can just cut right into the barrel. It cuts late, and that's where the guy, it's going to go off the barrel of the bat, and you're going to get bad results. Is what's going to happen when you leave a cutter in the middle of the zone. So that's the unfortunate nature of the cutter. It's better against a righty-lefty combo matchup where it's going to kind of run into the handle of the bat for lefties most of the time. That's at least the way I look at it.
Yeah, and if it's thrown correctly, where it starts at the middle of the plate and breaks out to the outside box. Outside batter's box against a right-handed hitter, it is deadly because it looks like a fastball and then it just moves away from the bat at the last second. But that's also one of the reasons why it gets hit so well, because the tilt that you hold the baseball on is such a micro fraction of a difference that when Luke, you can come on in. Yeah, it's such a micro fraction of a difference that it turns a cutter from being really deadly into being really hittable, and you really can't tell the difference unless you have become. You can close it unless you have become a master of throwing the pitch, which is why when you throw it incorrectly, you've seen Tyler Wells and Dean Kramer give up a lot of home runs off of.
Paul, just FYI, our 3-shot is all messed up at the moment, so I can kind of get that ready as you guys get it going. But I'm gonna have Luke on just on the mic for the moment. Apologize about that, but the 3-shot is not showing any of our cameras.
Oh,
so we'll get that figured out. That's good.
All right, Zach's gonna fix that. In the meantime, editor for Pressbox, Luke Jackson, is in studio. Luke, thanks for joining us today. How are you, man?
Oh, thank you for having me. Sorry for being a few minutes late. I got started like 10 minutes later than I wanted to.
I was 3 to 5 minutes late for the show today myself, so we got started a little bit later too. So no big deal. A lot of us running late today, and I don't take it personally because I am rarely on time in my life. But I'm never like egregiously late. I'm never like 15 minutes late for something. Late. I'm always fashionably late. Never more than 3 to 5 minutes.
Not disrespectfully late.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get that.
So I'm life happened late.
Okay.
You know what I mean? There we go. So you're in here to do our midseason report on the Orioles, but before we get into that, Orioles take Enrique Bradfield, a center fielder out of Vanderbilt with the 17th overall pick in the draft. Elite level speed and defense, makes a lot of contact. We're kind of unsure about the hard contact that he makes. Your thoughts on Enrique Bradfield as a player and as a pick for the Orioles?
Yeah, it was a little bit of a departure from what they've normally done, but as I was telling somebody a few days ago, when you're picking in the top 5, it's like you're picking a menu item from a 5-star restaurant. You got a lot of guys up top who can do it all. Mm-hmm. Once you get down to the 17 range, there's probably going to be something about their game that that slides them down to that part of the draft, or they're like a 17-year-old high schooler like requires a lot of dreaming on or something like that. And that's what they were looking at. They were probably looking at a lot of high school shortstops in that range. I know one went to the Blue Jays one pick later. And then you're looking at college players who, aren't as highly thought of as college players who go up top, like Dylan Cruz.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's just part of it, and that's just going to be life for the Orioles in the draft from now on. You don't get Jackson Holliday at 17. So, I don't know a ton about the player beyond what you know and what you know, just what I've read.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't watch much Vanderbilt on the SEC network this year.
Sure.
I'm just looking forward to seeing him in Aberdeen because it's fun to have a guy who can apparently run as well as he can. And it's going to be about, can he hit well enough to make the speed work and to make the speed game-changing. And so we'll see.
I want to be careful in how I say this because Stan got upset with me for it. But there was speculation from some fans on social media, and I say speculation from fans, nobody that is like an official analyst or draft specialist, that Enrique Bradfield could be a September call-up. I think that's completely out of the realm of possibility, but they're thinking specifically 80 grade speed, 70 grade defense. Is that completely out of the realm of possibilities here?
I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for them to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as a practical matter, you have someone on the roster who basically does those things right now.
Right.
At least on the bases. And it creates a 40-man issue where he doesn't have to be placed, Bradfield doesn't have to be placed on the 40-man for 3 more years.
Right.
And you're going to start his clock this early. And as far as we can tell, he needs some developmental time.
Sure.
For the bat. And another thing that on Bradfield, I'll trust this group with hitters. They've earned a lot of rope. And if they think that they could develop him as a hitter, I'm inclined to believe them. I just don't. I don't see the need for it.
Sure.
But just from a developmental standpoint, I think that would be kind of unfair to the player.
Agreed.
And but I don't think it's out of bounds to think about. I mean, if the guy has 80 speed, then I don't think it's out of bounds to think about that on a playoff roster.
Yeah, and let's be clear here that the Orioles, they have no need, like you said, because they have Jorge Mateo on the roster who's got 70, 80 grade speed, who they can use in a pinch running situation. Mm-hmm. He can also play really good defense in the infield, and he can play in the outfield in a pinch. And honestly, I think he can be a better than in a pinch outfielder. I think that he's got the athleticism. We've seen him track some pop-ups and fly balls in the past where he looks really good doing it. So I don't think that there's a need there. I just thought it was interesting that I immediately heard people speculating that this could have been that type of draft pick where they would use him for a playoff, as part of a playoff roster, a la Gerard Dyson. Is it Jared or Gerard Dyson?
I thought it was Terrence Gore.
Terrence Gore's a good example. Gore. You know what? And by the way, it looks like our third camera is not working. That's why Glenn had it unplugged and on the table over here. Is what I'm assuming. It's not lighting up. It's not doing anything. So it feels like it's broken. So unfortunately, Luke, we're only going to have you on audio today. But I actually thought Jackie Bradley Jr. When I heard about this Enrique Bradfield pick, and I went back and I looked a little more. And Luke, I want to get your thoughts on that because Jackie Bradley Jr. had a few good years in Boston, hit a little bit, great defender, a lot of speed. Bradfield's probably a tad more athletic, but again, the quality of contact is what I'm kind of worrying about right now for Enrique Bradfield.
I think Bradley was like a dynamite player on a South Carolina team that won the national championship.
You could be right. I don't know much about his college days, but
he was like, I think he's like one of the best SEC college ball players ever. Like, so I think that's probably a lofty comparison.
Well, I was saying for projection-wise at the major league level, what he might do at the major league level is what I'm saying. So again, I don't know much about college or about Bradley's college experience.
Yeah, I don't know. Bradley had some good years in Boston, against right-handers would have some pop. So well, I don't know.
Fair enough.
I'm guessing that if you had that he had that kind of career, that would be a success. I'm guessing.
Well, if you're taking him in the first round and he ends up being a guy who hits like 200, I don't know how much of a success that is. But if he ends up being a guy.
Like Bradley was better than that.
So Bradley's
right?
Bradley's best year, he slashed 267, 349, 486. That was 2016, his only All-Star year, and he clubbed 26 home runs, which I'm not sure I see Enrique Bradfield doing at any point.
I mean,
home run wise.
I mean, that's probably like a top 3 center field year that season.
Right.
So, like, I mean, if Bradfield does that, then.
But the career slash line for Jackie Bradley is 225, 303, 381, and that's. Again, maybe under what Enrique Bradfield might do in the long term. I'm just throwing out a comparison.
I don't look at him as being a guy who I think that maybe with development he could turn into a guy who hits maybe 10 home runs a year. But I think you're looking at more of a slash hitter who's going to get on base who's going to get on base at a decent clip and provide you a lot of speed, a lot of stolen bases, a lot of havoc on the base paths. A guy who can turn routine ground balls into base hits and singles into doubles and walks into doubles because of the stolen base effect. And a ball into the corner might be a triple more often than it is a double. It depending. So I won't pretend to know a lot about Enrique Bradfield. I don't watch a ton of college baseball. But I think the pick is intriguing enough that I don't hate it. And when you look at what the Orioles have right now, when you factor in Hayes, Mullins, Kowser, Santander, and Hicks on the current roster, Heston Kjerstad is going to be coming up sooner rather than later. They have a little bit of time where they don't need to rush this. They can develop him exactly the way they need to develop him and get him up when he's 100% ready to be at the big league level instead of bringing him up early out of need because they're not going to have that need. At least it would seem anyway. So that's something that's certainly interesting to keep an eye on. And it's nice that the Orioles are in a position where their first-round draft pick doesn't need to be ready and be a boom pick in 2 years.
It's interesting, though, if you look at the draft, they took all college players besides one guy. And that's an interesting approach. And I guess the approach that Mike Elias has generally took over the past few years. You look at Gunnar Henderson was one of the higher high school picks he made. And then, of course, Jackson Holliday at number 1 last year. Mm-hmm. But it's generally been college-heavy drafts for Mike Elias because he needed to, of course, expedite the process of the rebuild by getting guys who were closer to ready to the major leagues. And I view Bradfield as another one of those guys who is probably, 2 years, at most 2.5 years away from the major leagues, given that he hits the way the Orioles probably expect him to. And I think they got their guy, by the way. I think this is a guy the Orioles really wanted. Mike Elias said that they had him higher than 17, I believe, on their board. This is a guy they clearly wanted and have a lot of stock in. And one thing I was going to suggest to Luke, and I don't know if he agrees with this, and Paul, you as well, maybe the development of Cedric Mullins and the way all they've gotten out of him, out of a predominantly speed and defense-based player, made them think that they could do something similar with Bradfield. It's a possibility.
Sort of the inverse of the Yankees taking Spencer Jones because they were comfortable with their track record developing big college outfielders.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
No, you could be right.
Yeah, you could be right. Cedric Mullins was a Dan Duquette pick.
Sure, but I would argue they've developed him for the most part.
You could. That's a fair argument. When he got called up in 2018, he had developed, and then he was in 2019. He was just so bad.
Right.
He got demoted from the major league roster to AAA and from AAA to AA, and then in 2019 and 2020, he came back and looked to be a solid player for them.
Right.
I'm sorry, not 2019. 2020, he came back and was a solid player for them. And then 2021, we know that season was magical. And I do think that has a lot to do with the Orioles' development as it currently stands. So it's an interesting thought and one that has merit for sure. Now, before we get into things, and actually, you know what? We're going to get into this right now. I want to talk about some grading here. Let's grade the Orioles, their midseason report card. All right, and we'll start with Luke since he is the guest on the show and the expert in my eyes. Start with the starting rotation. What is your grade for the Orioles rotation as a whole?
Oh, how about B-?
B-, and what are your thoughts behind that?
Well, I think for the most part they've done what the club expected them to do, which was keep them in ball games, keep them engaged in ball games till the middle innings, until they could piece it together in the bullpen. Till they get to Felix. Not quite enough innings out of that group and a few too many blow-up outings.
Mm-hmm.
And so the starting rotation over the past 6 games has been really, really good. They're going to need that to continue in the second half because they do have a tough second half schedule, and they need the rotation to be a little bit better than it's been so far. But they've predominantly used 6 starters to this point, and they're all healthy. They've all been able to take the ball every 5th day, and in today's baseball, there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah.
There's a lot
Very
to be
true.
said for a Dean Kramer who can reliably take the ball every 5th day.
Yeah.
There's a lot. I mean, and I will also say that the development of Kyle Bradish has been one of the big bright spots for me of this first half, because you look at when he came back, once he got into a rhythm after the shin thing, he's been one of the best pitchers in the American League.
No doubt.
Since then.
No doubt.
So that's been great. I think we'll have to see where Tyler Wells' innings go, because he wore down last year. He's already passed his innings count from last year. Hopefully he remains fresh throughout the year because they're going to need him in the second half. I guess the big disappointment that wasn't necessarily a surprise, because he's like 23 years old and he was injured last year, was Grayson just not looking ready.
Right.
I mean, he showed flashes, but he didn't quite look ready. Hopefully he's making progress down in AAA because I think they're certainly looking at him, maybe, who knows, in a bullpen role down the stretch with his innings, and to be a big part of their rotation in 2024. So we'll see where that goes, but B- seems about right. They've mostly kept the team in ball games, and this isn't a rotation making a ton of money.
Yeah, and Stan mentioned the idea last week to us on the show, and he was the first person, I told him he was the first person to say it to me, but he hasn't been the last one I've heard since then, that Grayson Rodriguez could be slated for the bullpen to close out the year. And it makes a lot of sense, and he has been absolutely shoving at AAA. His ERA is right around 2.
Still a few too many walks.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I'm sure when he walks guys down there, in the back of his mind, he knows that, oh, that guy probably scores in the big leagues and that sort of thing. But apparently the start he made, the second to last start before the break, where he struck out 12 or 13 in 6 innings or whatever it was, apparently he looked like Grayson Rodriguez.
Yeah,
and
didn't walk anybody in that start.
And that might have been the first time where he really looked like that since his injury. And the big issue with Grayson, and this isn't the Grayson I saw in the minor leagues, but the big issue after his injury was the command, and that the command just wasn't the same. And you saw that in the major leagues, falling behind hitters, 2-0 counts, 3-1 counts, and getting into predictable situations. So he's got to get ahead, and if he does, he's got wipeout stuff. But if you fall behind constantly, doesn't matter how good your stuff is.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. And he did get a short start last Sunday, 3 innings where he also didn't give up anything. And Michael Elias on the broadcast last night was talking about how he could be close to another promotion, which I think will ultimately help this team. I think he's gotten that confidence that he didn't have when he was pitching at the big league level the first half of the year. So I think that he's going to maybe come up and maybe start to look like the Grayson Rodriguez we expected him. There's still going to be growing pains for him, obviously, because he's so young and he's a rookie, but I think he'll look a lot better the second time around. Zach, you're great for the rotation.
I'm going to also go B-. I think that's a fair grade. And the reason, I would probably go in the C's, but as Luke kind of mentioned, they're getting every single thing out of not a ton of overall talent, I think. I mean, you look at Kyle Gibson, he's performing much better than I think most people could have predicted, and much better than he did last year, to be fair. Kyle Bradish, I think you're kind of getting out of him what I expected. I thought he'd be really good this year, and he has been for the most part. Dean Kramer, I think you look at a start like last night, I think you're getting more out of him than could have been expected. There's a number of guys in this rotation, and not even, even the full-time guys such as Grayson Rodriguez, or the non-full-time guys, I should say, who have given you really good starts here and there. I mean, there were a few really good Grayson Rodriguez starts. So they're getting what they can out of not a ton of talent, and I like that. So B- for them.
Yeah, and see, for me, it's hard because I don't want to have the cop out and say B-, but it's kind of the B- is kind of the perfect grade for them.
Right? Yeah, definitely.
Because you've had some really great developments out of this starting rotation, but you've also had some disappointment out of this rotation. So I'm going to go ahead and give them and I do think that the positive developments outweigh the negative.
Oh, undoubtedly.
So I'm going to give them a B-. Also, Kyle Bradish, his last 13 starts of 2022, he had a 3.23 ERA, and he looks just as good, if not better, this year. He has been consistently good for about 2.5 months now.
Yeah, I even think it's fair to say that Tyler Wells is playing pitching, I should say, far better than expected. I mean, again, a reliever in previous years, had a few starts mixed in, now a legitimate full-time starter that has one of the lowest whips in baseball. That's impressive.
I mean, you look at what they're getting out of 2 Rule 5 picks this
right.
year,
Exactly.
and Wells. I mean, you're looking for value anywhere. That's pretty good.
That's unreal. Yeah.
Yeah, I look at like what you said, Tyler Wells. The really good is the low ERA. He's got the lowest whip in baseball, one of the lowest on-base percentage, one of the lowest batting averages against.
Right.
The bad is there's only like 3 pitchers who have given up more home runs than him.
Yeah,
and they've all been a lot of solo. But how long is that
a lot of
gonna
solo.
last?
Yeah, and the reason why his BABIP is so low is the same reason why he's given up so many home runs. He gives up a lot of fly balls. He's a fly ball guy, and so
undoubtedly,
and for him, it seems like they're either caught or they leave the park.
Right,
and so that's just
yeah,
that's just the way it goes. And sometimes it seems like the right-handed hitters can sit on like a cutter up against him and drive it out of the ballpark. But we'll see. I mean, we've gotten everything that we could have hoped for out of Tyler.
Yeah, no, I agree. He and Bradish have been really nice developments. Then you look at Dean Kramer, and the first month of the season, you're like, oh my God, 2021 all over again.
Yeah.
But then he had that 7-inning shutout start against the Nationals, and you said, you know what? It's still in there. I don't think 2021 Dean Kramer could have done that, right?
Yeah,
and then,
sure.
And really, since the beginning of May, his ERA is like 3, I think it's sub 3.5.
It's been quite good.
You throw out that 7-run start against who do they have the 7-run start against Cincinnati, I think it was.
No, it was against Minnesota. And
you're right.
I'm throwing that out for 2 reasons. Number one, the City Connect curse was still in effect at that point, and the Twins had just gotten blitzed 3 straight days in Atlanta, and they had a big team meeting, and Rocco ripped his team in the media, and they came out and you got the hornet's nest that Friday after that Atlanta series, so we could throw that out.
Yeah, so we'll throw that start. I could have sworn that was Kyle Gibson. They got hit around by the Twins. I thought it was. It doesn't.
Kyle Gibson got hit around by the Reds.
Yeah, you're right. It was Gibson against the Reds, and then it was Kramer.
That was a bad turn through the rotation.
Yeah, that was a really bad turn through the rotation where we started questioning things. Now they've had 10 games where 9 of them they've given up 2 earned runs or less.
Well, again, I mean, Kyle Gibson's pitching for his 10th win today.
Yeah.
And, I'm not a big proponent of wins and losses in baseball, but I will say it just shows how much better Kyle Gibson has been than could have been expected. At the end of the day, he's giving them a chance to win when he goes out.
No, that's absolutely true. And when you look at Dean Kramer picked up his 10th win last night,
right.
Tyler Wills has 7 wins. You have 3 guys in your rotation that are going to have double-digit victories.
Right.
And yeah, wins are an antiquated stat these days, but you have to be doing something right to get that number of wins.
It really means you're sticking around in games.
Yeah, you're keeping your team in ball games.
And really, what he was signed to be is an innings eater, and that's been honestly you've gotten more out of him than even that. He's been Jordan Lyles is your quintessential innings eater from 2022, not 23, because he's been
awful.
One of the worst pitchers in baseball.
Not that long ago.
He's lost like 16 games already, or 14, or whatever.
It's 11. He's 1-11.
That's it. But they've lost 16 games that he's pitched in. I think is the stat.
Every start but one, I believe, and that was one that he won 2 starts.
And
ago.
I guess he's eating innings for the Royals, but he's not certainly no quality innings mixed in.
You look at this rotation, and Kyle, Dean Kramer was really bad for a month, but you trust him every time out now. Kyle Gibson. He started a little slow, then he picked things up, and then he got hit around for a little bit again. He's kind of exactly what you expected him to be. Cole Irvin, for me, has been too much of a disappointment for me to be able to give them higher than a B-, and he's been good his last few times out. He looks like the guy that they traded for, but do you trust him when you see him on the mound? Do you trust that he's not going to give up a lot of contact?
Sometimes it looks like Brandon can't wait to get him out of the game, and I honestly
can't blame him.
You understand it.
I mean, his stuff's a little light for this division, and I think that's what everyone saw the first 3 outings that he had. I think I was joking to Stan, they might have to back up this Walter Pimlico But I mean, it's just like the touch and feel, command and control lefties generally do not work in the AL East.
Yeah.
And, but like you said, since he came back from Norfolk, he's pretty much been the guy they traded for.
Yeah.
And even though, I mean, they paid a pretty good price to get him, because I saw Hernandez in Aberdeen. I really liked him. And so that was a good get by Oakland. But, but
He just made his way to AAA.
Yeah,
You know, what I've seen from Irvin so far is that he's tight-roped out of a lot of bad situations. And again,
I mean, by all rights, he should have given up a 3-run homer in Minnesota.
Exactly, and Cedric Mullins makes an unbelievable catch. And that's a lineup that we talked about it last week, that you really have Byron Buxton, Carlos Correa, and there's not too many others.
Neither one of them are lighting the world on fire this year.
Right, and then Buxton's the guy who basically hits a home run. Cedric Mullins takes it back. It's a good game at the end of the day, but Cole Irvin, I think the other shoe will drop, and he might not look like that guy they traded for in a few weeks. I think that's going to be bound to happen. But once again, he's going to be similar to that Grayson Rodriguez role, where he's going to give you 1 or 2 games that you're going to really like.
I think all they're really asking for him now, just get us to the trade deadline.
Yeah.
And, maybe he can help out after that in like a multi-inning relief role.
Sure.
Something like that. So
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All right, and the bullpen. How are we looking? What's the grade for the bullpen?
I'm going B+.
Okay.
Because, Felix has been the best closer in baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Cano has been a revelation. The pitch that Soler hit out to that part of the park, unbelievable swing.
Mm-hmm.
That was that's one of the best swings an opponent has taken against the Orioles this year. But anyway, the middle relief has been, as Stan says, a little bit of a box of chocolates. Baker on rest, when he's working on multiple days rest, is really good. But you can't really use him 3 and 4. You can't really use him 5 and 7. Bauman has been used a lot this year. In the past couple weeks, I think the All-Star break probably did him a lot of good.
Yeah.
But the past couple weeks, you could sort of see the velocity's a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
You're wondering how that looks in the second half. Before he went on the IL, I thought Perez was really coming around, and hopefully in the second half, he's pitching for Bowie today. Hopefully he can provide something for the Orioles in the second half. Danny Kalum has been a revelation. Actually, a buddy of mine right before the season was surprised that I didn't even know who he was. But my buddy's like, this guy's going to help the Orioles, and I'm surprised that Minnesota, A, he didn't make Minnesota's roster, and B, that they sold him to the Orioles. And so he's been excellent. He's had a couple bad outings, but I mean that's baseball. That's 162 game season. And then after that, it's guys filtering in and out, whatever.
Sure.
But it's been disappointing. It seems like Tate's probably going to be out for the year.
Yeah. You've got nothing out of Gibbons.
Anyway, nothing out of Givens. And so, there have been a couple disappointments there, but I'd say B+.
Go ahead, Zach.
I'm going to go B. A little less happy with it. I still don't trust Brian Baker. I really don't. And he's come in a lot of high-leverage situations. That's kind of the role he's been in all year. You might get a good outing from him here and there. You might get a bad outing from him here and there. You don't really.
Me, it always seems like how much rest is he working?
Right, and like you said,
if he's working on multiple days rest, he's really good.
Exactly.
He had great stuff yesterday.
Right.
And when he's been used a lot, you don't get the same stuff. And it's like, for me with a reliever, if you can't go 3 and 4, not what are we doing, but your value is less.
If they had a guy in place that was not Brian Baker or Michael Ballman that could pitch the 7th inning or 8th inning, and that's not Cano. Like a Scott Barlow that Stan keeps mentioning, that wouldn't be a horrible move. They need that guy who's far more reliable than Ballman and Baker are going to be. And until then, I'm going to give it a B.
Yeah, and for me, it's a B- because Cano has looked more hittable recently.
Oh, undoubtedly, yeah.
But he's still really good. He's still getting the job done, but he has looked more hittable. Felix Bautista has been the best closer in baseball all season. He is absolutely ridiculous. And, you remember, and Danny Coulombe is in this category too, where they've been so good that you remember specifically when they weren't, because
Yeah.
it's so few and far between. Danny Coulomb, the two bad ones, the home run to Kevin Pillar, the home run to Harrison Bader.
Right.
And then you can't remember when else he's been back because he's just been so good. Felix Bautista, it's the home run to Judge, the home run to Mike Ford, the All-Star game blip. You know what I mean? It's the game where he bounced one to let the tying run score against the Braves. And other than that, you don't really remember when the home run to Duvall, right? And that's it, because they've just been so good.
Right.
But then you look at Cionel Perez. The last 5 or 6 games that he pitched before he went on the IL, he looked like 2022 Cionel Perez. If he comes back and he's that guy, this bullpen
That'd be
is
huge.
so
That'll
much,
really help him, yeah.
so much better. You got nothing out of Tate. You've got nothing out of Givens. Then you look at Brian Baker. You never know what, like you say, he's a box of chocolates. You have no clue what you're getting out of Brian Baker. Right. One day he's going to strike out 3 guys on 12 pitches, topping out at 98, 99 miles an hour, and then the next day he's going to walk 3 guys and give up a 2-run single. And you feel the same way about Mike Baumann. So the Orioles, they really, and then Austin Voth was supposed to be that guy, and he was so bad. Then he was okay. Then he was bad again, and then now he's on the IL.
Right.
They need some help in this bullpen. Grayson could provide that help. It could end up being John Means could provide that help. Or maybe I think that you're going to trade for a guy also. You know, Jordan Hicks or Scott Barlow or Keenan Williams from the White Sox. They're going to add somebody to this bullpen because I think that's where they know their biggest area of weakness is.
Yeah, I agree with that.
There's so many moving parts, and you really only have 3 guys that you can really trust coming out of that bullpen. For me, it's a B-, and that's simply because of how good those 3 guys have been.
Fair.
Yeah. And then for the offense, Luke.
Ooh. It's a tough one. Ooh. You go first.
I'll go A-. Again, similar to the starting rotation, I think you're getting a lot more out of this offense than really you should be.
Mm-hmm.
Guys like Adam Frazier, he's already hit his career high in home runs.
Yep.
He hit 2 last night. He drove the team to a win pretty much by himself last night for the most part, besides the Cedric Mullins home run. There are guys that are cropping up in every game. It's a different guy every game, it seems like, that has the big hit.
Every game has a different star.
I was thinking of the same thing. Orioles magic. But there seems to be guys off the bench that provide a lot of depth, a lot of value. The lineup and the offense overall have a lot more production and a lot more value than they have in previous years. And they're coming from guys you might not even expect. James McCann might come off the bench and hit a home run. Ryan Mountcastle now is going to platoon and hit home runs off the bench.
Ryan McKenna hit a walk-off home
Ryan
run to
McKenna,
the opposite field.
Perfect example. Ryan McKenna hit. So there's more depth across the entire lineup. And while there isn't, again, on paper, a ton of huge names or talent, it's a lot of young guys. You know, Colton Cowser's going to produce. Jordan Westbrook's going to produce. We've already seen other guys produce. This lineup is, I think, out of the 3 stages, parts of the team we just talked about, the most built for success and the most built to last because it is so young, and there are a lot of guys that right now are really hot and hitting well.
Luke.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you just said. That sounds about right. A-, I like that. They're getting standard issue seasons out of Santander. They're getting a career year out of Hayes.
I was going to say an overproduction out of Hayes for the most part.
They're getting a standard issue season out of Mullins. And we'll see how Rutschman's season evolves. It's hard to catch in Baltimore. It's so hot. And we'll see how many full days off they give him and that sort of thing. And try to get his bat to the finish line. But, I think that sounds about right. We'll see how Cowser mixes in throughout the second half. We'll see how Westbrook mixes in the second half. They've gotten more power than certainly I think they thought they were getting out of Frazier.
Yeah.
Which is good. Don't forget, Mateo carried them in April.
Yeah, right.
Don't forget that. He was,
like I said, it's a different guy at every turn, really, who's making a difference.
Yeah, Ryan O'Hearn has been a revelation. I did not have Ryan O'Hearn exit velocity merchant on my bingo card before the season. But he's really stepped up because they've needed him to because Mountcastle hasn't been very good.
Yeah.
And so to get his bat, O'Hearn's bat going against right-handed pitching has been big. I'm sure I'm Aaron Hicks.
Carried them for about a 2-week stretch.
At a time of need when Mullins was out, really helped them out. And so, it just seems like they're getting a lot of contributions up and down the lineup. And right now they got 14 position players on the roster, and they've got 14. All 14 of those guys provide something.
Exactly.
that you want to get in the lineup in some form or fashion. So that's all good. And then hopefully Gunnar Henderson in the second half. It keeps on getting better. So yeah, that sounds about right.
For me, it's a B. It's I can't go A-. I can't go B+.
Okay.
It's a B because, I mean, Jorge Mateo became unplayable by the third week of May. Okay, and he was playing every day still. Ryan Mountcastle, the only reason he's still on this active roster right now is because how much Brandon Hyde loves him
and his history,
and what he did as a rookie and the hard hit ratios that he has. He hasn't done anything to be able to remain on this roster. You're hoping it was just the vertigo and he can come back and finish the season strong, but
right.
I have to see it to believe it because it's been 2 years now. And then I look at Adam Frazier comes through with a big hit. And honestly, and Adam Frazier in his last 12 games, he went through a 1-for-19 stretch through the 23rd of June in a 7-game stretch. And since then, he is, in the 12 games since then, he is slashing .361, .439,
wow.
.722, .1161. He's got 4 home runs, a double, 12 RBIs, 4 walks, and just 4 strikeouts in that 12-game stretch. He's been really good for about 2 weeks now. Which has been really nice. My problem with the Orioles offense is they started the year seeing more pitches than any team in baseball, getting on base at a really high clip, really productive with runners in scoring position, and they stopped doing that for a good stretch. Too many guys got cold at the same time. Ultimately, what they've done since they brought Kalser and Westberg up has been really, really good, and I say B with an upward trajectory. I think that they're going to get better, but they've been too inconsistent for me to be able to grade them any higher than that. And then as a team overall, what's the grade for the team? 20 games over 500, third best record in all of baseball, and they've been there all year.
A+.
Yeah.
I mean, they're, 20 games over 500 with like a $70 million payroll.
It's one of those sum of the parts situations.
I was
about
to say that.
Right, like you're not going to get the strongest. Each part isn't necessarily an A+, but as a sum, they're an A+.
Well,
and then
the whole's
especially
greater than the sum of the parts.
Okay, so, sure, something like that.
I get what you're trying to say.
Yeah, and then obviously Brandon Hyde factors into this as well. Where do you grade him? How does he grade out? And I look at that and I give Brandon Hyde, a pretty high grade because he's been frankly really good in most situations, and he's led them to 20 games over 500, and that's almost indisputable success. So while you can dispute a lot of situations he's put the Orioles in and lineups he's put out, he's made them a good baseball team this year. So A+ for me, for sure.
And it's got to be an A+ for me, too. And I will say that with Brandon Hyde, I told myself I was going to come into the season with a more open mind because I was very critical of Brandon Hyde last year. And I thought that he was the reason they lost a lot of games down the stretch last year. I will say that he has kept this clubhouse together. They've gelled really nicely. They play hard for him. I love his tenacity and his mentality when he's in the dugout. And how he has the pulse of the locker room.
Yeah.
And I have not seen, I can probably count on one hand with fingers left over how many times I've thought he's been the direct cause for a loss, which was not the case last year. I think I'm not going to grade him, but I think he's been a lot better than I gave him credit for last year.
Sure.
And so the Orioles, if you're not grading them as an A+, I don't know what you're watching because it's a team that was. Right. That's 2 years removed from a 110-loss season. Last year, they were 4 games over 500 and needed a 10-game winning streak in the middle of the season to get there. And this year, they've been one of the best teams in baseball from the outset.
From the get-go, yeah.
Yeah, it's been really nice to see how good this team has been, how quickly. Biggest surprise for you guys. I'm going to go first with this one. For me, it's Adam Frazier. Adam Frazier got a lot of disdain from me, and it wasn't because I don't like the player. It's because I didn't think that he was a necessary signing. But you can't doubt the how clutch he's been in big situations. The 12 home runs, the 45 RBIs at this point in the season. He's been more productive than he's ever been in his career from a home run and RBI standpoint. And Anthony Santander, never been a big OBP guy. He hit 240 each of the last 2 years with about a 300 to 315 on base percentage. This year, he's hitting around 270.
Yeah.
He's having a career year in every facet of the game. It seems like he set a career high for exit velocity 5 games in a row now. He's just hitting the ball hard. He's playing really good defense. Him and Adam Frazier have been my 2 biggest surprises, along with Yenier Cano and Felix Bautista. forming the most lethal back-end duo in baseball.
I was going to say, it's hard to leave Cano out of this. I mean, he is the single biggest surprise for me because you're taking a guy with an 18.5 ERA in Major League Baseball last year and very limited success in Major League Baseball prior to that, and he's now a top 3 reliever in baseball. And that's just almost unheard of. And frankly, the Orioles wouldn't be where they are right now if it wasn't for him. So he's my biggest surprise.
Yeah, I'll go on the same track as you and say Kalum. Because, like I said, I didn't even know who he was before the season. And, when I first saw him pitch, I was like, the fastball's a little light. I don't know if this is going to work. And but the breaking ball, his breaking ball has been one of the best pitches on the team.
No doubt.
Throughout the season. And, with Perez backing up a little bit, Kalum's emergence has really helped this bullpen. And like I said, I didn't even know who he was before the season, so I'm going with David.
I didn't either. It's amazing how effective he's been. And like Luke said, soft tossers generally don't do great in the AL East, and he's frankly been really good.
Yeah, when I saw them pick him up at the end of spring training, I went and looked up his numbers, and he was a guy who looked like he'd had success at the big league level, but just hadn't been able to stay on the field.
Right.
I thought that health might be the biggest concern for him, and he's been able to stay on the field and be one of the best relievers in baseball, at least in the American League this season to this point. And before we catch our third break here, biggest letdown for me, Jorge Mateo, because he had a decent spring, he had an incredible April, and then became the worst hitter in baseball and never regained that form. And then Dylan Tate and Michael Givens, they were supposed to be two main cogs in your bullpen. You've gotten less than nothing out of either one of them.
Yeah, I got to go with Michael Givens. I really talked up that signing before the season because I looked at the numbers he put up in the past 3 or 4 years, and he's been really consistent and really solid. And he's not a top 10 reliever in baseball by any means, but he was putting up respectable numbers. Mm-hmm. And I said, that's a guy that can give you veteran experience. That's a guy that can give you a really reliable 7th or 8th inning. And frankly, he's been just not even on the field. So it's impossible to almost even grade Michael Givens' season because he's pitched, twice, 3 times, and now he's probably going to be shut down for the whole year if he hasn't been already. So biggest letdown for me is Givens.
I'll say just the 5th starter combination of Grayson and Cole Irvin.
Yeah.
I think they've combined for like a 6 ERA in that spot.
Yeah.
That's got to be better in the second half, obviously, and I'm sure that they're looking for ways to upgrade at the deadline. So I just think that turn in the rotation has been a disappointment for me.
And that's a nice preview of what we're going to talk about when we come back from the break, what the Orioles are going to do at the deadline, what the schedule looks like, and who some of those trade targets could be. But we do have to catch our third and final break when we come back in more with Luke Jackson on the Bat Around.
Catch that festival feeling in Charm City. Everywhere you go, you'll find exciting entertainment, delicious eats, and endless summertime fun. Cheer on the O's at Camden Yards, pick crabs by the waterfront, beat the heat inside a world-class museum, and make memories that will last a lifetime. Go to baltimore.org for more information and to plan your visit.
Maryland drivers, did you know you can save up to 77% on tolls with an Easy Pass Maryland discount plan? That's right, 77%. It's never been easier. Pick the plan that's right for you at driveezmd.com. We'll keep you moving.
The All-America Senior Game powered by New Balance will be back at Johns Hopkins Homewood Field on July 29th. The most decorated girls and boys lacrosse players in the country have been invited to play in what is the premier lacrosse event of the year. Every college coach wants their players in this game, and if you dream of being in this game, you start by trying out for one of your regional underclass teams this summer. The best against the best. Get your tickets now at allamericalacrosse.com.
It's another exciting weekend of affordable family fun at Prince George's Stadium with the Bowie Bay Sox. It starts on the 14th with our big hitter bobblehead, Connor Norby, for the first 750 fans. Saturday sees our special circus night with post-game fireworks. And Sunday features the Kobe Mayo Squish Pillow with special ticket package. Get your tickets now by calling 301-805-6000 or anytime online at baysox.com. The Bowie Bay Sox. Let us be your 9-inning vacation.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
It's a Maryland thing you wouldn't understand. Where the waves meet the shore, you will find Dorchester County. Hi, this is Jimmy Charles. When I think of Maryland, I think Dorchester County on the eastern shore where it's open for making memories. Dorchester County, it's a Maryland thing. For more info, visit www.visitdorchester.org. It's a Maryland thing. Hell yeah. It's a Maryland thing. Hell yeah.
The latest edition of Pressbox is available now. On the cover, Dave Ginsburg remembers Goose as he looks back on the impact that late Tony Saragusa had both on and off the field here in Baltimore. Plus, he explains how Goose's kids are working to continue that legacy with the Goose Flights program. Also inside, Todd Karpovich profiles the path Tyler Wells has taken to becoming a star in the Orioles rotation. And you'll find a special summer travel guide with information about events and activities throughout the state. Pressbox is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores. And you can always find the entire edition as well as the best daily coverage of the O's, Ravens, and Terps at PressboxOnline.com.
Your summer destination is closer than you think at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. With an expansive gaming floor and incredible dining options ready for you to explore, your adventure awaits. Dine at the new Coho Korean Barbecue House coming in July or on the patio at the Prime Rib. Enjoy the summertime breeze at Orchid Smoking Patio. Limited time packages starting at $229. What are you waiting for? Book now. At Arundel Mills, must be 21. Please play responsibly. For help, visit mdgamblinghelp.org or call 1-800-GAMBLER.
All right, welcome back into the Bat Around. Rolling right along here in hour number 2. Second hour of the show is brought to you today by the latest edition of Pressbox, which is available now. On the cover, Dave Ginsburg remembers Goose as he looks back on the impact the late Tony Saragusa had both on and off the field in Baltimore. Plus, he explains how Goose's kids are working to continue that legacy with the Goose Flights program. Also inside, Ty Karpovich profiles a path Tyler Wells has taken to becoming a star in the Orioles rotation, and you'll find the special summer travel guide with information about events and activities throughout the state. Pressbox is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores. You can always find the entire edition, as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressboxOnline.com. Back at it here with Luke Jackson of Pressbox fame in the studio today.
Pressbox fame.
Pressbox fame.
That's a first.
He's
That's
the editor.
The first time anybody's ever said that.
He's famous.
Stan used to get so mad at Paul when he would call him the
Grand
the
Poobah.
Grand
Well, I didn't
Poobah.
realize that was an insult, and I looked it up, Grand Poobah, and it was like a joke.
Oh.
Yeah, so I didn't
That was
realize what
funny.
I was saying when I
Good
called
times.
him that. So now we're moving on to what the Orioles can look for in the second half. And they just began a stretch here in July. Really, the stretch began before the break because they played the first place Reds, followed by the first place Twins, followed by the third place, but on their heels, Yankees, followed by the first place Twins again, and we're now the second place Twins. Now they're back to the second place Marlins, who have the fourth best record in baseball. It's Marlins, Dodgers, Rays, Phillies, Yankees, and Blue Jays to close out the month of July. We talked about the gauntlet in May. If that was the gauntlet, I don't even want to know what this is. And the Orioles, they've got to be able to keep pace here, especially with the trade deadline looming. First and foremost, how are we looking at and I'll start with you, Luke. How are we looking at the Orioles? How do you foresee them faring against this tough stretch of schedule to finish out the month? We've seen time and time again that they can hang with any team in baseball.
Yeah, I expect them to do pretty well, because that's what they've done all year. And, it's funny, we look at the schedule being like, oh, this is a tough stretch, and other teams are probably looking at the Orioles like, ooh, we got to go to Baltimore, that sort of thing. I expect them to do pretty well for themselves. But like I said, throughout the second half, it's a tougher schedule than it was in the first half. They had, I think, 2 series against the Royals in the first half. They had 2 series against the Tigers, then a series against the Athletics, and they did exactly what you wanted them to do. They beat up on those teams, and that's exactly what you need. But In the second half they do get like the Rockies at home. They don't have to go to Denver and play in the elevation there. They do get an A's series. They got to go to Oakland. That could be a little tricky. But generally, it's a tougher schedule in the second half. But I expect they'll do well. I mean, I have no reason to think that this group will melt. So
I have nothing really to add to that. I mean, that's a really good description of it. They're going to face some tough teams. They're going to face some teams that are not so tough. But at the end of the day, they really need to keep the foot on the gas. And especially, as you just mentioned, against teams like the A's, where you really have a chance to take the whole series, you've got to play hard in every game and not just sit down and say, we can beat this team. You've got to play hard and just keep the foot on the gas throughout the every game you play, no matter whether it's the Yankees or the A's. You've got to win every game you can.
I look back to last year, right, and there was a series against the Pittsburgh Pirates, and the final game marked game 108. And it started the last third of the season for the Orioles, and they lost a game against the Pirates where I thought they should have won the game, and they had Rougned Odor starting at third base, and a mental error that he made allowed 4 runs to come into score. The Orioles did not put up a fight in that game. They lost that game 8-1. The only run, a Jorge Mateo home run. I was at that game. It sucked. And it kind of set the stage for the rest of the season because the Blue Jays were the team that the Orioles were kind of chasing in the wild card there, and the Blue Jays were wrapping up a sweep against the Athletics in that same weekend. The Orioles did not sweep the Pirates, and then we saw what happened the rest of the year where the Orioles kind of fell out of the race towards the end of the season. I look at this team very differently this year. I look at this team the way I looked at the 2014 Orioles, where they were really good in the first half of the season, but then when the second half started and the rubber met the road, they dominated, and they were maybe the best team in baseball the second half of the season, where every game you knew they were going to win that game.
Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day actually. Like once they got into a rhythm, like from like June through really September, it was just like surgical in how that team won games. Because remember the first 8 or so weeks they were like a 500 club, and then after that, like I said, it became surgical where the starter would go 6 or 7. They would lock down bullpen. They would hit 2 or 3 home runs, and they would win 5-2.
Yeah.
And that was like every game.
And I remember watching them play the St. Louis Cardinals came to town, and it was that same series where they celebrated 60 years of Orioles baseball. And I remember thinking, "Oh, this is a big series, and this is going to prove where the Orioles stand amongst the elites in baseball." And they wiped the floor with the Cardinals. And that 60th anniversary celebration game, they won that game like 10-2.
Right.
They blew them out of the water. And I was like, this team is really good. And that's what I look at the Orioles, this team, because they lost 6 of 7 a couple of weeks ago. They lost 6 of 7, and I thought to myself, if they can find a way to win the last 2 games against the Yankees and then go in and sweep the Twins, get that 5-game winning streak going into the break, it's going to bode really well for them. It's going to give them the confidence, and they're going to get that week to reset.
Right.
And that's exactly what they did. And then they came out last night, and you never really thought last night that the Marlins were going to come back and win that ball game. There was not there was not a point in that game where I thought the Marlins were going to win. And that's just kind of how I feel about this team. Moving forward, every day I expect them to win. And I think that they're going to win more often than not. Now, Fangraphs picked them to win, I think, 35 games in the second half and have a negative run differential. Yeah. I don't think that's happening. I think this team is going to approach 100 wins this year. I think
it's bold.
Well, I mean, it's only 46 wins the second half. Out of it's like 46 and 16 the second half. It's not out of the realm of possibility.
It's not out of the realm. I just think that the Orioles have performed better than I expected. So I'm not sure that they're not at that dominant max level that they can get to already.
Well, but that's also assuming,
I just don't know how much better they're going to get.
It's assuming that they're going to add, right? That they're going. I don't
know if you can assume that though.
I cannot imagine Mike Elias running a team that's this good, that is clearly a piece or two away from being a legitimate World Series contender, and him not doing something.
Yeah,
I can't imagine that.
So you would look at it 2 ways. Number one, I think they've got to do something.
Sure.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. But in terms of doing something big, you can look at it 2 ways. Number one, they've meticulously built this, and you don't want to do anything rash to short circuit what you have going on and try to going, so to speak, all in on this year. On the other hand, the Yankees are so-so, the Red Sox are so-so. I don't know how many years that's going to be the case where you have both of those things.
Yeah.
So this might be one of your best chances to win a World Series.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're Mike Elias, GMs are judged on their work as buyers for me. And and this is where the rubber meets the road for him and trying to figure out all this stuff. Because, look, it's easy to sell high on Jorge Lopez when he's having a career year and get some stuff back for him. This is the harder part, is figuring out what am I buying, how deep am I going into this, how much of my farm system am I willing to deal away.
Sure.
That's the hard part. That's where you judge GMs. For me, you judge them as buyers.
It's made easier now, Michael Elias, too, that the lineup has been so productive, and there's more on the way. Heston Kjerstad, he can call up whenever he wants. Colton Cowser's here, and hasn't really played. We don't really know what we're going to get out of Colton Cowser yet here. And then you look at starting rotation, probably needs an arm. The bullpen probably needs an arm. You kind of have chances to pick and choose there. Jordan Montgomery makes a lot of sense. I see some of the guys in your notes, and Kenyon Middleton makes a lot of sense. There's guys that are going to be available, but the problem I look at it as is that there are going to be 15 other teams, 16, 20, who knows, that are going to want the same guys. And that's what's going to make it really hard. So I'm not doubting that the Orioles are going to try to get guys, and I'm not doubting that Mike Elias is going to try to buy. I'm doubting the Orioles are going to actually be able to buy.
Yeah, and that's where I come back to the pieces that he's gotten. I mean, he got Kyle Bradish and what we thought was a big league reliever in, Ryan Madison? Isaac Madison.
Yeah.
Ryan Madsen?
Ryan Madsen.
That's right.
Isaac Madsen.
Isaac Madsen, yeah.
He got those guys for,
very little.
For Dylan Bundy.
Right.
He was able to go and get... at the time, we thought that it was a big-time deal that he was able to get rid of Alex Cobb for... I can't remember the guy's name. Jahmai Jones, right? And he was able to trade Iglesias. The fact of the matter is he's been able to pull a rabbit out of the hat with some of these moves that he's made. I mean, he got Yenier Cano and Cade Povich for Jorge Lopez, and it was blasted at the time, and now it looks like one of the biggest fleecings of the last few years in baseball. I think that he's going to have to go out and add to this team. And I expect that he will. The question is, who's he going to be willing to give up? And the players that he's giving up, are they more valuable to the Orioles as players here or as trade chips? Because at the end of the day, that's what he's got to glean from these players. Is Westberg a guy who you think is part of your future that you want to help build? You want to have him be a piece you build around? Is Connor Norby one of those guys? Is Kobe Mayo one of those guys? Who are you willing to give up? Because you're not getting something for nothing. Right, so and that's what it really comes down to.
Doubt.
With that in mind, we can all agree that they probably need at least relief help, and that might be the most obvious move that they're going to do. I have 4 guys that I have listed here. Scott Barlow from the Royals, Keenan Middleton from the White Sox. Actually, I have 5 guys. Kyle Finnegan or Hunter Harvey from the Nationals, and Jordan Hicks from the Cardinals. Who is the most likely of these guys that you think the Orioles will go and pick up?
I have a few national friends who are Nationals fans, and I told them that they should deal Hunter Harvey before he gets hurt again. So, and I mean, he's been electric for them this year. Kyle Finnegan is an interesting name. I've seen him a lot. Probably the guy on that list I've seen the most. He's been a reliable right-handed reliever for a long time.
Sure.
He'd probably be a nice add. But yeah, I mean, it seems like all those guys that you mentioned, would help.
Yeah.
But I will say that you can. The other thing about the trade deadline that's weird is that, look, you're only guaranteed to have them for 2 months, and as we know, variance swamps everything, and so you could make a sound move. Your process could be good. You pick up a really good player, and then he just sucks for 2 months for whatever reason.
Right.
And that's the frustrating part of the deadline.
Yeah.
So you can do everything right, and it still doesn't work out. So, we'll see.
Gerardo Parra. Anyway.
Gerardo Parra. I'm going to go with Jordan Hicks. I think I like here the most, and probably looking at the Cardinals as sellers, I can't.
They already came out and said that they're going to be sellers.
I mean, they can say that, but I don't know if I
don't know. GM seemed pretty. It seems like he's going to do some deals here.
I think the writing's on the wall for them. I would think they're going to deal, and Jordan Hicks makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
He really does. He's electric. Generally been a late-inning guy in his career. Makes a lot of sense for me. Yeah. So Middleton's another guy that I've seen a lot and I like a lot. Kyle Finnegan, more of your veteran type of guy.
I love Kyle Finnegan.
Yeah, Kyle Finnegan's been really good. Hunter Harvey, no interest. I have absolutely zero interest in. He's going to get injured again. I just don't have any interest there.
He's been really good this year.
And then not Mitch Keller, but
Scott Barlow. I would like Mitch Keller.
Well,
that'd be a nice
I was
get.
looking at his starter list, but Scott Barlow, I haven't seen a ton of this year. I've seen the numbers, but I really don't know how good Scott Barlow's been.
Yeah, his ERA is above 4.
Mm-hmm.
He's about that as a reliever, which is why I get that he's got good stuff and he's intriguing on a good team. He's probably at the bottom of my list. I want to see guys who have a better track record.
He's got really good stuff, but like when you see Barlow's outings, like sometimes he's just like getting his work in when they're down like by 7 runs, and it's like he gives up a home run. And you're like I don't know. It's like it's to me that's probably a tough evaluation if you're like a pro scout going out to see him. He comes in. He's got really good stuff. They're down by 7. Gives up. I don't know.
I mean, Jordan Hicks is striking out almost 14 guys per 9. Yeah. That's the guy for me.
That's the guy. It's just I feel like there's a lot of teams are looking at him and saying that's the guy.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's when you go to the starting rotation now. And I don't know that the Orioles are going to be in the mix for a starting pitcher. I think they should be. I don't know if they're going to be willing to give up what it's going to take to get some of the guys I have on this list, like Marcus Stroman. I wanted him to sign with the Orioles 2 years ago when he was a free agent. I said, give him $25 million a year and build around him in your rotation. I love him. I think he could be available at the right price. It just might be too steep. Eduardo Rodriguez from the Tigers has been really good this year. Just came back off the IL, had a solid start last night. Jordan Montgomery, another guy available from the Cardinals who was not great with the Yankees. He's been stupendous with St. Louis since getting traded there at the deadline last year. And then Mitch Keller from the Pirates, I think, could be available. A little bit older of a guy who's finally realizing his potential this year. Again, I don't know if the Orioles are going to be major players for a starting pitcher because they're going to have to give up something they probably don't want to give up.
Right. Montgomery would be an intriguing fit at Camden Yards with the dimensions.
No doubt.
Stroman. The thing with Stroman and Rodriguez is that they have opt-outs at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine that they'll exercise those. And with Rodriguez, he kind of went AWOL last year. He quit on the Tigers for 3 months, right? And so I don't know if there's any reason to think that that'll happen again.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you trade for him, you don't want that to happen again.
Sure.
Ideally.
So with both of those guys, you're really dealing for 2 months. Would you be interested in extending them? Or is it something like as part of a deal you could tack on a year or 2 to their deal?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what the answer is there. But all those guys you mentioned are good pitchers, and all those guys seem like they would be good additions.
And with Eduardo Rodriguez and Marcus Stroman, because they have the opt-outs, it might make the price tag in the Orioles ballpark.
Right.
Because of that. Because they aren't going to be able to ask for a king's ransom for these guys who are clearly going to opt out. Everybody opts out. It's very rare that you see a player opt in.
Oh, I think Max Scherzer is going to opt into that 43 next year.
Well, yeah.
I hope so.
I'll opt into that.
Those are the situations where that's what happens. Trey Mancini, if the Orioles hadn't traded him, probably would have opted into his contract for this year. It's one of those things where the players opt in, and the players are like, if I don't opt in, I'm not getting anything close to this next year. So the opt out, I think you can expect it for Stroman and Rodriguez, and I think it's going to lower their price tag maybe right into the Orioles' wheelhouse if they want to go that route. Zach.
Right. That's basically what I was going to say. I really don't think they're getting Keller. I'm going to say no on that one.
Do you think the Pirates even dangle him?
No, I don't think so.
Him, right?
I think they're going to be decent next year. I think the Pirates are going to make a run at that division.
I think they see, as soon as this time next year, the top of their rotation being Skeens and
yeah,
Keller.
it very well could be.
I would think.
Very well could be.
So,
I think Eduardo Rodriguez is the guy here that they could actually get. I think that's very possible. Jordan Montgomery, maybe he fits pretty well. Marcus Stroman, I just don't see it. I really don't see it. Even though I'd love it. I love the guy.
Yeah, I think he would be such.
He would.
He would slide right in with this clubhouse. That swagger that he's got.
As soon as the Cubs dangle him, 20 teams will be calling for him. So I just can't see him as an Oriole. They'd really have to bid high for him.
And the only reason that I bring up Mitch Keller in all of this is because I heard his name linked to the Orioles a few weeks back.
I'd love that.
That would be
that.
So I was like, all right, if people are linking him to the Orioles, that's fine. I'm going to put him in my list, but I don't think it's going to happen either.
Yeah, and he's got club control. I just
he's just too good, frankly.
I don't like the Pirates have worked so hard with him to get him to this point.
Yeah,
like they've given him chance after chance after chance with this stuff, and then finally it pops. Are you going to trade him now? I don't see that happening.
No, I don't either.
Yeah, but it will be the one guy on that list where the Orioles might be willing to give up more because of the team control and because of how good he's been this year.
Because of the wild card situation, got so many teams in it, and you have very few defined sellers at this point. We might not really get a lot of buy or sell decisions until 48, 72 hours before the deadline. So
sure,
and
definitely.
where teams are saying like, we're motivated to sell and that sort of thing. So I mean, I'm sure the prices from defined sellers right now are crazy.
Yeah,
like on Eduardo Rodriguez is probably crazy.
We're gonna find out. We're definitely gonna find out.
And sometimes it takes a long time for sellers to actually show their hand
right
about what they're motivated to do. What the salary they're motivated to move. And that sort of thing. So we'll see.
Luke channeling his inner Sheryl Crow. It takes a little time sometimes.
It takes a little time sometimes.
I saw Sheryl Crow in Nashville. That was an interesting experience.
Was she opening for Bruce Springsteen?
She was not.
Was Courtney Cox in the crowd?
Courtney Cox was in the crowd. Yes, of course.
Where was it?
It was at the Nissan, not the Nissan Stadium. Which one's the one? Bridgestone Center. That's what it was.
Oh, the hockey arena.
Hockey arena.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I've been to the Grand Ole Opry in
okay.
Nashville.
I did not go when I was down there.
I forget who was the headliner that day. I forget who the headliner. It was fun.
Nice.
And then finally, and I don't think the Orioles are going to go after it bad. I thought up until a couple of weeks ago that they would, but I think that they like what they have internally right now, and I think that they think they have more on the way.
Yeah, I don't see it.
I agree.
But if they did, I listed out Paul Goldschmidt because he's going to be on the table. I listed out Brent Rooker from the A's, Cody Bellinger from the Cubs.
Wouldn't touch that.
And dude, he's having a hell of a year.
I know,
He's
but
having
I
a
still
hell of
wouldn't
a
touch
year
it.
with that short with that short porch in right field, man. You telling me? And then Charlie Blackmon, he's due back any week now for the Rockies, and I think that if he has a nice couple of weeks before the trade deadline, that he could be on the move also. Any interest in? I mean, obviously everybody has interest in Paul Goldschmidt, right?
Yeah.
Any interest, reasonable, realistic interest in any of these guys?
Well, I would say Brent Rooker, but Oakland is inevitably going to trade him to Atlanta for some magic beans.
Yeah.
So,
and then he'll sign a 10-year contract and hit 30 home runs a year.
Right, 1% to the Braves foundation. Anyway, say those again.
Paul Goldschmidt, Brent Rooker,
Yeah, he'd be good.
Cody.
Paul, do you remember
Cody Bellinger, Charlie Blackmon?
Do you remember the comparison you made like a year ago when we were talking about the trade deadline? You were like, "Well, 15-year-old Paul Valley had interest in J-Lo, but all it was is just interest." That's what the Orioles are going to have in Paul Goldschmidt.
Yeah. Bellinger would be a very good fit for a lot of teams, like most contenders.
The Yankees,
yeah.
The Dodgers again. They could take him back.
He's having a really good season. He crushes right-handed pitching. He could play center. He could play left. I'm sure he could play right or left.
He can play first base.
But yeah, I just think that he's. I think his price is going to be pretty high because there's going to be a lot of interested contenders in him.
You look at the fact that they gave him an $18 million contract, so he's probably got what? $8 million left on that contract. So you got to fork over the dough for that. You're going to have to give up something, but he's not re-signing with the Cubs unless they offer him something ridiculous because he came back and it was a make good contract, and even though he got hurt for a little bit, he's made good on that contract. I can see the Yankees dealing for him, but man, wouldn't it be awesome if the Orioles just swooped in and took him? And now you have a guy that can play first base, he can play the outfield, he can DH, he could hit 15 home runs the last 2 months of the season for you.
Of those guys that you mentioned who are among those who are likely to move, I think that he would be the most seamless fit. But again, I think there are like 15 teams that
after the last few years he's had, I don't know if I could take it. But
you look at what Austin Hayes looked like before the home run derby. He looked baked out of his skull. I think he and Cody Bellinger
they probably have a good
time
together
after that. Now, I'm not saying that Austin Hayes was baked out of his skull. There was a picture where he just looked like he was. I'm sure he's
legal
a
in Maryland
now,
so
straight edge guy. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting deadline. I think the Orioles have at least one, maybe two moves under their belts here, and let's buckle up as we used to say when Buck was here, and get ready for a nice run
not
here.
Buckling up? The Mets.
Yeah.
Haha. See.
Man, that sucks. Buck's going to lose his job.
He is going to lose his job, and so is Billy Epler.
Well, I think they're going to hire David Stearns, and David Stearns is going to hire his own guy.
Yeah,
I can see that.
I can
either
tell
after this year or after next.
I think that once Buck gets let go, I don't think he's going to manage again. I think that
probably it for him.
I think that's
probably
it.
And
with the way Baltimore ended and the way that the Mets situation looks like it's going to end,
yeah, and that's unfortunate because I love Buck, and it's a shame because I don't know that he's ever going to win a World Series then, which stinks because he's a really good manager. All right, now it's time for Take to Rake. Going into Take to Rake today, I don't know the standings. We figured it out at the end of last year, but I know that I'm a little bit behind, although I do believe I won.
You're only
week.
one game behind me now, I think, or one. I don't know if we're gonna use games or
one
shows or
one
whatever.
victory behind you.
One victory behind me.
So last week, Zach took Ryan O'Hearn. I took Austin Hayes.
Okay.
Only 3 games. Austin Hayes went 4 for 12 with a double, a home run, 2 RBIs,
beat.
a walk, 4 strikeouts, slashed .333, .385, .667, .1051. 429 batting average on balls in play, which is interesting because Ryan O'Hearn went 3 for 8 with a double, no RBIs, no home runs, 1 walk, 1 strikeout, slashed .375, .444, .500, .944. With a .429 batting average on balls in play. They both had a really good 3 days.
Yeah.
Ryan O'Hearn was on the short end of the stick until he had a nice 3 at-bats last night.
Right.
3 plate appearances. I'm going to leave this up to Luke. Luke, who wins for Take the Rake, or is it the ever-coveted tie between Austin Hayes and Ryan O'Hearn for the last 3 games?
I'm going to say tie.
I was going to say, I think that's the most fair given there was a 4 at-bat discrepancy there. I mean, I think that's the hard. It's very tough with only 3 games.
Very tough with only 3 games.
I don't see any of those guys really.
Yeah, neither one of them. And both had over a 940 OPS.
Sure.
Both got on base at a 375 or better clip.
Yeah.
You can't really say
they both raked.
They both raked for 3 days.
Hopefully, we take 3 guys. All 3 of us take a guy, and they all rake, and we tie.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
So, because you were not a stranger to the show, you don't get the guest picks first privilege. We usually reserve that for first-time guests or infrequent guests. Because I won last week, do I get to pick first?
Up to you, man. Your show.
I believe that that when we have a tie, the person that won the week
That's
before
fine.
maintains the first pick.
Yeah.
So I'm taking Cedric Mullins.
Okay.
I wanted to take him last week and the week before. I thought that he was going to break out. He has. Now, of course, because I took him, he's going to go 1 for 23 this week. But I'm taking Cedric Mullins. Luke?
God, I was going to take Mullins, too. I thought that the All-Star break, he needed the All-Star break.
Yeah.
And he came out with a vengeance yesterday. Who am I taking? So I can't take Mullins, right?
No.
That's okay. How about Westbrook gets it going?
Okay, Westbrook. I'm going to go Gunnar Henderson this week.
All right, so
hit that ball really hard in the first inning last night in his first at-bat.
Hit that ball.
Probably, what was EV on that? 110. I mean, he smoked that thing. So I would like to think that Gunnar Henderson's going to have a good week.
All right. Zach
Always our good time of dead air while Paul types these in.
You know what the funny thing is?
I should start typing these in. That would make a lot more sense, given that I'm the computer guy over here with 4 computers around me.
You know what the funny thing is that usually I try to fill the dead air, but I've heard from a lot of people in the industry and not in the industry that when there's dead air in a conversation or in the radio world, that people have said you don't need to fill the dead air if it's just a few seconds.
Sure.
And I thought about it earlier today because I was filling dead air when I didn't need to. And I was like, all right, I'm not going to fill. I'm just going to type this really quickly. And then Zach makes a comment about the dead air. And I was like,
the problem is when you're behind the mic, 2 seconds of dead air seems like a full minute.
Feels like a way longer time. Absolutely.
Exactly. So actually, I think that's a good idea that, Zach, you start typing these
I'll start typing them out
from now, and then you can just send them to me so I can put them in the notes for next week. So what are we going to do here for final thoughts? We got to get rolling along here. Don't have time for the bet around today. That will make its triumphant return next week. I'll let Luke, as a guest, your final thoughts for this show.
Ooh, final thoughts. I didn't know this was coming.
I have a final thought. Point Break.
Yes.
I got up at 7 a.m. this morning. I'm going to make this real short and sweet. I got to drive to New Jersey in a few minutes here. But Point Break, 6.7 out of 10.
Okay.
6.7.
A lot better than I thought you were going to
it was actually not that bad. I somewhat enjoyed it. The ending was kind of stupid. Kind of hated the ending. I'm not going to spoil it, but if you haven't seen it in like 30-some years that it's been out, you're probably not going to see it at this point. Not something I'd ever watch again. But 6.7 out of 10.
It's a fun movie, and there's nothing wrong with Missed You by a Week in Baja.
I wanted Gary Busey to be more Gary Busey. Like, he was too serious for me in that movie.
Yeah, that was before he lost his mind.
Oh, okay. Got it. Yeah.
No, but what do you mean that the ending wasn't good for you?
I don't know. It's just like throws the bat. Sorry, guy. I can't say that. I'm sorry.
You let him get away. We'll get him when he comes back in.
It's shocking how many lines of this movie you know.
He's not coming back. Come on,
He's
man.
Not coming back.
Coming back.
The coldest line in the history of movies.
Right? the opposite of Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'll be back. He's not coming back.
6.7.
It's a 12 out of 10 for me.
Wow.
All right, Luke, your final thought.
Have you guys been into this Immaculate Grid?
Yeah, I play it every day.
I am amazed how bad I am at it.
I'm horrible. You know, today's was the Royals and the Guardians, and I cannot think of a Royal and a Guardian. I'm gonna work on that.
I was mad at myself because I went with someone way too common. I went with Carlos Santana.
Oh, that's a good one. I forgot he played first for the Royals for a little while.
I did it last night, and it was like 53% of people. I was like, oh, jeez. So it's a perfect game because it's got something for everybody. If you're a casual baseball fan and you just want to try to fill it out, and you don't care what your percentages are, and then if you're like a hardcore baseball fan, you want to get it as low as a score as you possibly can. So it's really like a perfect baseball game. But I am amazed, A, how bad I am at it, and B, there are several teams that I've apparently memory hold, like the Rockies.
I was gonna. That was my team too.
Apparently, in my pea brain, like there are only like 5 Rockies in the history of baseball.
The other day, it was like
Todd Helton,
yeah,
Larry Walker, Mike Hampton, Chris Bryant.
Chris,
that's it. Like,
Ubaldo Jimenez.
The other day,
that's
it was like Rockies and some other random team. I don't remember what it was. It was like Rockies and Pirates, I think it was. And I sat there and I was like, "There's no way I'm getting this." I was like, "Did Carlos Gonzalez play for the Pirates by any chance?" Like, who actually played for the Rockies and the Pirates in their career? I can't think of it.
But for AL East teams, I can get it down to
right
below a percentage.
If it's like Orioles, Yankees, Rays, I'm good at it. It's easy. But you go outside of that, the Rockies, the Pirates, I'm like, no, I'm not getting that.
I have refused to play the game because every time I see somebody post it on Twitter, I'm like, I never would have gotten it.
Oh, the people
I don't want to like hurt my baseball ego by being so terrible at it.
The people who post their Wordle score on Twitter, please stop. No one cares.
That's the thing.
Some people do it. I don't know.
And I could not figure out like a 300 game winner for Cleveland. Because it what like
I had no idea either. I put in Bob Feller and that was wrong. So
and
I don't know.
The other one, one of the other ones.
Bartolo. No, I'm just
Bartolo.
One of the other ones was 300 game winner for St. Louis, and I said Steve Carlton, and apparently everyone else did.
I had no idea on that one either. So
I forget who the other 300 game winner. That was a tough category.
The other 300 game winner was the Blue Jays. I want to say.
Roger Clemens.
No,
I think that was from.
Was it the Jays? Was that another day? I don't remember.
Okay. Anyway, so there are some. They're getting tougher.
They are.
It seems like they're getting more difficult. So anyway, I've had a few of my buddies and I have had fun with that. And
yeah,
so it's
fun.
Great.
My final thought is simply that these are the shows I look forward to the most when Luke comes in. Because I just love spending an hour talking about baseball. They are a ton of fun, and I think it's good for our listeners to get that. Instead of just having a guest that we ask questions for 10 minutes and then, go about our tomfoolery. This is always a really fun show for me. So thank you so much, Luke, for joining us again. As always a pleasure. We'll have you back in before the end of the season. Then we'll have you back in at the end of the season to dissect how everything went down, assuming that you'd be okay with doing that.
Text me. I'll be here.
All right. Sounds good.
I don't have any kids, man. I'm available.
There you go. I don't have any kids yet, but I do have one on the way.
Congratulations. I saw that on Twitter. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm very excited.
When are we due?
January 13th.
Okay.
January 13th, 2024. I would hope it wouldn't be 2025.
Isn't it weird? Just think about it. Kids are now being born in 2024. Well, I mean, come next year.
My kids.
It's just weird to think of. Like
my kids.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a good few months for you. The Orioles are going to win the World Series. You're going to have a kid. It's going to be great.
And then I will never
gonna
watch
name her
baseball again.
after Bruce Springsteen, probably, hopefully.
Nope. I already have the name.
Are you going to see Bruce? Or did you see Bruce? What?
No, he did.
Where did you see Bruce?
I saw Bruce at in Baltimore and then also at the DC show. And I'm going to see Bruce September. The Baltimore show was better, actually. I was on the floor for that show, too, so that made it good.
Okay. Any other concerts?
I'm going to see Bruce September 1st and September 9th. So
September 9th at Camden Yards.
At Camden Yards.
How many times have you seen Bruce?
So he hasn't gone on tour in a little while, so this is actually my first tour. I've actually been able to see him. So this is my first tour. So this will be the third and fourth time coming up in September.
Do you have any concerts?
No, man, I can't. My wife doesn't like to do concerts.
If I have an extra ticket, you can come to Bruce with me, Paul.
So here's the thing. I don't hate Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah, you do.
I don't love Bruce Springsteen. I get that he's like a great songwriter. people that love Bruce Springsteen are obsessed, and they are very loud about their obsession. And Zach is amongst those people, and it's so odd to me that at 22 years old, he is.
A couple years ago, I went to his childhood home in New Jersey when I was up to visit my cousin,
weird.
which I might do again, given that I'm going to be up there in a few hours.
And Zach has also never heard of some of my favorite bands like Incubus and All Time Low. He had never heard.
I heard All Time Low because they're from Towson. So
but he had never heard of these bands. Like I mentioned Incubus, he said, "Who's Incubus?" And I was like, that absolutely blew my mind.
Don't know.
And so like it's been a running joke for probably over a year now,
at least,
that about Bruce Springsteen, because he's a 22-year-old who's absolutely obsessed with
and then,
an 80-year-old
here's,
singer.
Here's what happened, Luke. I won a bet, and I got to name his dog after Bruce Springsteen, which is...
That's not true. That's not true. Our dog is named Bruce after Bruce Wayne because our cat's name is Lena for Selena Kyle, who was Catwoman. So, anyway, off the rails, just at the right
As
time.
usual.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning into the Bat Around. Thanks to all of our guests, Luke Jackson, another great segment as always. Thanks to Stan the Fan Charles for his weekly segment. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Without you, we don't have a show. And thank you to all of our loyal fans and listeners. Without you, we certainly do not have a show. So thank you so much. Looking forward to a really strong second half of Orioles baseball, making a nice, strong